Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Hello, Louis. Hello, Carrie, Curtis, Martin. Thanks for being here, guys. I'm excited about this one. So how are you doing? This one is going to be a very long one. It's gonna be like I'm guessing 3.5 or 4 hours, maybe even more, because we have a book and a movie to review. So this week, uh, this month, and also I just want to say that before going to something else. As we voted, we voted in the Instagram story and also in the community tab on YouTube that we would do the live, like the book club live every 2 months instead of every month and a half or every month, because I've noticed it's kind of rough for me to actually it's not rough to have to read a lot for the month, but it's just that I think my time would be better spent doing more outreach and doing more editing for shorts, for example, than reading books a lot, you know? So I'm I'm kind of it's kind of sad in some way because I really love these lives. These are my favorite lives and my favorite content, like the lives for the book club, but it's more important to be as effective as possible. Um, this time it's Defending Animal Rights by Tom Regan and Bold Native by, uh, the director is Dennis Henry Hennelly, I think. Yes. And by the way, I had reached out to him a year back or something, because I wanted to make shorts out of his movie and I wanted the authorization, and he gave it to me. Um, and Yeah, so I texted him actually this morning to tell him that we were going to review it, just so that he knows if he wants to see it or not. That doesn't really matter. Yeah. So hopefully we might see him in the chat. That would be really cool. That's, by the way, I'm very very biased with this movie because, as I said in the last live, I really really love it. This is my favorite movie of all time. So oh, is this one of your books, Louis? So, by the way, guys, we'll know that, like, a little tiny portion of the extent of how many books Louis gave me, but Louis was really, 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 really cool and generous. He gave me 2 boxes full of books on animal rights and things related to that. So infinite thanks, Louis. That is incredible, and I'm very excited. A lot of them are here, and some are up there. It's completely full with books, so I'm very very excited. Um, Anyways, we'll see a bunch of them in the voting phase because I'll show you them so that we can vote and we can take them as a template to base our voting on. You know what I mean? Anyways, so yeah, I have 10 pages worth of notes for both the book and the movie. Anyways, I'm not trying to make it short. I'm just trying to make it as good as possible and as rich as possible. So let me know your thoughts throughout the live. Um, I'd like to know what you think about what I'm reading, etc. So yeah, this is the one. I don't think this. Okay, this was one I already had myself. Um, oh my god, did you know, Louis, that you gave me a book signed by Tom Regan? I saw in Empty Cages, the book you gave me, and I freaked out a little bit. So yeah, that's pretty damn cool. I took notes on things that either like were interesting to me or stuff that I learned there and that I just wanted to point out, and stuff I didn't think were in a lot of places online about veganism or animal rights, whatever. So it's obviously not going to be exhaustive. It's not really possible to do that with a book, but hopefully covers a lot. Lou, you didn't even know what? I thought you had it signed. Do you want me to show you? Because it's really cool. Hold on. Do I have it here? Yeah. That's insane. You didn't even know that. I'm being a fangirl, I know, but it's signed to you. It's not possible that you didn't know. Hold on. Can you see? Oh, you forgot. Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. Anyways, enough fangirling for one day. This is the author that we are reviewing the book of. So, okay, so thanks for being here, guys. Excited. All right, let's start. Okay, so the structure of the live will be okay. First, my summary and biggest takeaways, which is going to be most of the live, the big majority of the live. And then there's going to be a commentary by you guys. If you want to hop on the live, I'll send a link. And if you want to just tell me what you thought in the chat, whatever way works. And then it will be the suggestions and voting for next month. I should have, like, the system I created is a little bit better than last time, but still not perfect. But if you have ideas on how to make it better next time, let me know. It's not the best. So I think we should jump into it. It's already 10 minutes in. So first we'll go with the book. This is the longest part of the live. All right. Anyhow. So yeah, this book was published in 2001. And there's going to be a lot of quotes from this book because it's just very good. And sometimes I just can't explain it better than the quote, but I think I mean, I really like quotes, so hopefully you guys don't really mind too much about the quotes. But so yeah, I mean, you shouldn't really, but there's a quote from Darwin in the beginning, that is like one of the three quotes in like, before the introduction, and I chose that one because that was the one that I thought was the best. And it's, quote, "Animals who we have made our slaves, we do not like to regard as our equals." That's pretty spot on. Okay, so around 100 years ago in 2001, the distinguished American neurologist Charles Loomis Dana, prepare yourselves, argues that animal rights activists suffer from a mental illness, zoophil psychosis, the love of animals psychosis. So yeah, he was kind of like trying to tell you the history of animal rights and animal welfare and animal rights. And yeah, it's still a thing in some way. People still think we're crazy, but it was literally a thing. But there was also, like, they also think that being gay was a mental illness at some point? Yeah, they actually, he talks about that actually in the book. We'll see about that later. But yeah. um some people twist science for their own ends, but okay. He shares his contribution. So like, a bunch of the book is basically made out of speeches or articles he's written for different people, and this whole book is to actually answer the critiques he's received. I mean, most of the book is to answer the critiques he's received on his book in 1983, The Case for Animal Rights, which I have here. And Louis actually gave me one as well. I have two now. um, so yeah, I didn't finish it. I hope we'll vote on that one day because it's one of the classics of animal rights. Um, so yeah, he shared like the contribution he made to the 1993 edition of the encyclopedia, and he was basically asked to make an introduction to the issues of animal welfare and rights, because especially back then it's still put in the same thing, which is understandable. But anyhow, so it's called Animal Welfare and Rights: Ethical Perspectives on the Treatment and Status of Non-Human Animals, and it's in the Encyclopedia of Bioethics. Also, there's something I wanted to say. Oh, by the way, guys, do you hear me well? Just to be sure. Louis says, "I've been psychotic for 32 years." Apparently, according to him, yeah, we're all psychotic for to like having compassion or being decent, but whatever. What's something I wanted to say? So yeah, this is kind of like an overview. In his book, I started The Case for Animal Rights, and in that book, he kind of recounts the history of animal rights a bit, at least what I read. And so this is like a summary of the history. Um, which is really handy to know as an activist, honestly. So I started a word glossary. Let me know if you'd like to see that. If you had like a link to that, it's a document on Drive I can share with anyone. Sweet, thank you for tagging me there, Arjus. Good, thank you. Because it's like a basically it's all the definitions that could be related to our activism that we might want to know, like utilitarianism, or I don't know, anything related to philosophy or animal rights. So yeah, I filled it with some stuff in here as well in the book. So one of them is the normative ethical. Normative ethical theory can be seen as the systematic inquiry into the moral limits of human freedom. I mean, it's a mouthful, but it's really it's saying it in a complicated way. I mean, a more complicated way than necessary. But anyways, he's a philosopher, so he does that a lot. um, okay, there's a quote I want to read. No philosopher or theologian has gone so far as to say that, from the moral point of view, there are no justified limits on what we may do to these animals. Even René Descartes, most celebrated for his theory that non-human animals are automata and thus incapable of feeling either pain or pleasure, is said to have treated his dog humanely. At a certain minimal level, then, all normative ethical theories speak with one voice. At other levels, however, the differences are both real and deep. Yeah, I didn't really mention too much about Regan, but he died in 2017. He was a professor of philosophy at a university in the US. I don't remember where it was, in the east of the US. And he's one of the big figures of the vegan movement, really. Um, he was a friends with Gary Francione. So yeah, he's really, really cool. Yo to all the vegan pioneers who are shining a great light. Yeah, he's one of the important figures. Definitely, he's really cool. Anyways, oh, in that case, I'm glad to be crazy, Martin, about like the what the guy said about vegetarians and vegans. Yeah, definitely, me too. Um, I mean, there's like there's yeah, there's different quotes about this. There's like people who say, like there's a fine line between being no, not this one. Yeah, like you're gonna be basically seen crazy if you're doing something not normal. Anyhow, so there's another thing that's interesting to know. It talks about direct and indirect duties. So the direct duty views, it's basically we should limit our freedom because of the ways other animals themselves are affected or treated by human agents. They are entitled to a certain kind of consideration or treatment. So it's direct because it's because of something in them intrinsically, basically. That's important, morally to morally consider. And then the indirect duty views, the basis for moral constraint is based in something other than the animals themselves. Humans owe nothing to them, or other animals don't deserve any sort of treatment or consideration. Human freedom should be limited because, for example, the human cruelty towards them will cause humans to be cruel towards other humans. Denying we have direct duties towards non-human animals. Basically, it's denying that. Um, and he says that basically all normative ethical theories addressing the moral status of other animals fall in either camp. So it's either a direct duty view or an indirect duty view. Um, yeah, so there's three different ways people think that human freedom should be limited. There's three options. So abolition, reform, or status quo. There's a quote on page 4. An abolitionist position argues on behalf of ending human practices that routinely utilize non-human animals, for example, as a source of food or as models in scientific research. A reformist position accepts these institutions in principle, but seeks in various ways to improve them in practice, for example, by enlarging cage sizes for animals used in research. A status quo position, unlike the abolitionist one, accepts these institutions in principle and, unlike the reformist stance, does not recognize the need to improve them. End quote. Also, when we say abolitionist here, we're not referring to Gary Francine's abolitionism, which also includes, I mean, from what I remember, intersectionalism. Okay. Oh no. Every time I see Aristotle in a book about animal rights, I roll my eyes because I know it's not gonna be good. um, so yeah, he talks about Aristotle's perfectionism. All right. I gotta find it first. Okay. Quote, justice, it is claimed, consists in giving to individuals what they are due, and those individuals whose characters are morally better, more nearly perfect than the characters of others, prima facie, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that, deserve more of what is good in life than do other, less good people. Aristotle's accounts of what makes people morally better and of the good of man have helped shape much of Western moral theory. That's sad, but it's true. Concerning the latter, Aristotle accepts the commonplace notion that the good we humans seek is happiness, but he argues that the true happiness we seek is not abundant wealth, fame, or even pleasure, but rather the possession and exercise of those virtues or excellencies that are uniquely human. Thus, happiness, in his view, is an activity of the soul in accordance with virtue. End quote. Yeah, also another quote. It's gonna be a lot of quotes, guys, but I think it's really good to, to just have a lot of quotes. Anyhow. Hmm. Trying to find it. Where is it? Oh, I found it. Sorry, guys. It took me forever. Okay, quote. Um, in the case of both the moral and the intellectual virtues, the human capacity to reason plays a decisive role. Um, for man is, in Aristotle's view, unique in being a rational animal, and the good of man consists in actualizing to the fullest extent possible those unique potentialities that define what it is to be human. End quote. Yeah, it's wrong actually. We know scientifically that's not true, but a lot of people don't know that. There's a lot of, I mean, it's just if you make rational decisions as a non-human animal, which they do, for example, just to escape danger, that's a logical, like you're able to reason because you're making a decision, right? You're able to reason, oh, I shouldn't be here, therefore I'm going to escape. Like I just don't understand how you could not see that. It's not like, yeah, sure, there's instinct, but there is instinct in us reasoning as well. Like, I just don't. Anyways, let's stick to the the book. But uh, so yeah, Aristotle was very inegalitarian in his view of the treatment of different individuals, and we're talking about humans here especially. So Aristotle obviously denies non-human animals' capacity to reason. He also states that they are here to serve humans who he perceives to be greater. Women were also here to serve men to him, as well as people lacking the ability to reason. So there's a quote from Aristotle here. The use made of slaves and of tame animals is not very different, for both with their bodies minister to the needs of life. End quote. So he was elitist, misogynistic, I guess, classist, ableist, and a human supremacist. Wow. Um, so basically, Aristotle is for name the trait, and I'm not sure what you mean by that. Oh, you mean like people use Aristotle's reasoning? Is that what you mean? Please explain. Thanks for being here, Terry Regan. And everybody, of course. I get triggered every time I see Neil deGrasse Tyson. Same. Carrie, yes. I mean, not Carrie says that, but you say in the message, Carrie, yes. Liberation of animals and humans go hand in hand. No restriction happens, as being vegan has always been the happy way. I don't know what you're referring to. Anyways, uh, the way to say it is prima facie. Okay, thanks. Oh, you were talking about like liberating yourself through liberating other animals. I don't really understand that, to be honest. Is it like, I don't understand that with um but whatever. That's fine. Okay. Okay. So, oh yes, and then he talks about like in Christianity, there's this Christian stewardship instead of despotism. Like when you, I mean, it's different interpretation, whatever. But some people who talk to Christians in outreach, they go into the actual thing. I don't do that actually when I talk with religious people, because I've already laid out the slave owner thing. Like if a slave owner believes that a slave is here for them, does that make it okay for them to enslave the person who's a slave? And when they say, well, God said blah blah blah, I can use other animals, we can just refer back to that, and that's really fast, and I think it's very efficient. But anyways, either you interpret it as like we can dominate other animals, or you, because we have the power to, or you can say, well, we are supposed to be stewards of other animals. And he shows like the value of non-human animals in this is all still in the Christian way of thinking and talking about the Bible and everything. But he says like non-human animals have value through being created on the same day as human animals. In Eden, humans didn't exploit other animals or eat them. In Noah's rescue boat, that there were other animals but no plants. So there's a clear distinction between plants and other animals. Then he talks about contractarianism. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this than other um, lines of thinking, not lines, schools of thought, I guess. So, according to contractarianism, morality is a kind of contract into which people, the contractors, voluntarily enter. Morality emerges as a set of agreed upon and enforceable constraints on human freedom, constraint that each contractor believes to be in his own self-interest. Nothing is inherently right or wrong, just or unjust, but only these things as a result of agreements reached by rational self-interested contractors. I get I've gotten that in outreach. Actually, I was doing with a free outreach, and the guy was all over the place. But anyways, you get that sometimes in outreach, so it's good to kind of know the best answers to that. And we're gonna get into this. So you said like you when you talk about so basically Aristotle is for name the trait. You meant I was commenting on his quote that he said morality was an extension of rationality. All right, cool. I think using religion to convince the religious is a losing battle. I mean, I don't know if it's a losing battle, but yeah, probably it's not. I don't think it's the most efficient way. That's for sure to me. But at the same time, wouldn't they listen to a Christian, like a vegan Christian, more than a non-vegan Christian? I think so. But anyhow, I just had good results with saying to like doing what I just said, like referring to the slave owner, the human slave scenario, and people would get it there. Then so I'm sticking to that because I don't have a religious background, so it's out of my comfort zone, anyways. But anyways, so there are two types of contractarianism: Hobbesian and Wall's veil of ignorance one. So Hobbesian is like from Hobbes. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce Hobbesian. So so the criticism for the Hobbesian one is that if 95% of the which is like what we just described was like the classic one of Hobbesian from Hobbes, basically. So the criticism for that is that that if 95% of the contractors are white, the door is wide open for discrimination, um, for the non-white people to participate in the moral agreement. Um, so basically, yeah, like you could just say, well, we most of us agree that you shouldn't have a say in what's going on, because we're all racist. So that's a problem. Um, in the second type of contractarianism, um, Rawls, who is a philosopher, he talks about the veil of ignorance. Basically, in that form of contractarianism, the contractors would imagine themselves before birth, not knowing when or where they'll be born, rich or poor, etc. And then they would, and then considering that, they would ask what limits we should put on human freedom. But the problem is that they know they'll be human, though. They might not know what color or where or their class, whatever the hell, but they know they're going to be humans. Obviously, they're already freaking biased. But also, it would mean that you have to be really um, honest about it, and you know not pretend to do it. Whatever. But anyway, whatever. So now Kantianism: rationality is a human characteristic and makes one cruel to humans to be cruel to other animals. So humanity exists as an end in itself, but not the rest of the world. The criticism for that is the argument for marginal cases. So not all humans can ever be rational. Like some humans are born without this ability, in meaning they are born. They can never have the potential to develop it. Like some people have a mental handicap, they can't ever be rational. So yeah, that falls flat when you talk about that. But anyways, and then utilitarianism, the view that our duty is to perform the act that will bring about the best outcomes for all those affected by the outcome. So Bentham is one of the original utilitarians. I'm not sure if it's the guy who who created kind of that line of thinking. I'm not sure, but he's one of them. He said, like the question is not can they reason, can they talk, but can they suffer? So placing sentience instead of rationality as like the morally relevant trait to decide whether to morally consider someone. And he, oh my god, guys, I have this quote on my fridge. I think he might actually quote that later. I'm not sure, but if he quotes it later, I don't know. But he has this incredible quote about I, I'm gonna go get it. I'm sorry, guys. I'll be right back. I just want to read you the quote that's really, really good. Hold on. I'll be right back. Just a second. Sorry. Sorry about that. I had an issue. Yeah. I'm sorry. I went to the bathroom and also reheated a coffee. So sorry about that. Took longer than expected. I just want to read this quote real fast. So it's beautiful. So it's from Jeremy Bentham in 1789, which is also the year of the French Revolution, which is kind of poetic in some sense because of what the quote is. Anyways, so the day may come when the rest of animal creation may acquire those rights which never could have been withholden from them, but by the hand of tyranny. The French have already discovered that the blackness of the skin is no reason why a human being should be abandoned without redress to the caprice of a tormentor. It may come one day to be recognized that the number of legs, the velocity of the skin, or the termination of the os sacrum are reasons equally insufficient for abandoning the sensitive being to the same fate. End quote. It's beautiful. So beautiful. Lucy, talking of quotes, you know this, Leo Tolstoy, while there are slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields, shows how responsible we humans have to be for a peaceful world. hmm I think I might do vegan story time and read some chapters live for discussion. That's really, really great. Be careful though, because it depends. Like you can do that totally fine with like books in the public domain, which is 100 years old. But yeah, you will break copyright if it's not commentary. Like if you read some quotes like I'm doing, but your commentary is like way more than the reading or something, um, you will be right. You will be all right, basically. So be careful. But that's a great idea, like something like that. The amount of slaves, punishment, and petty jealousy in the Bible is embarrassing. Yeah, I agree. I need you to read Eternal Treblinka for me. I forgot how to read. Oh my god, I have it, guys. Louis, it might be the book I'm the most excited about. Hey, I cannot wait, man. And also, I like the books that you can see are the books I'm the most excited to read because I chose the ones on display I wanted to see the most. So, anyhow, did anyone else read the book, guys? Um, who read the book? Um, Anyhow, let's continue. What looks great? I'm sorry, I don't remember. Oh, the books? Is that what you meant when you said they look great? Because I agree, they're really cool. Anyhow, I love this quote so much I put it on my fridge. Nope, I didn't read it. I'm thinking it here today. That's totally fine. Like Carrie, like you do not expected to read it. It's encouraged, of course, because it's you take way more from the book. Take away way more, obviously. But the point of these lives is to, I mean, advertise for the books, but also to kind of like have a discussion and of course make a summary of them so that you have a lot more, because I feel like a lot of people don't have time to read the books necessarily, and also it's kind of daunting for some people. So it's trying to bring the information a little bit more digestible in some way. So it's one of your favorite quotes, Martin, like Leo or the Leo Tolstoy one, probably. All right, let's continue. So yeah, I basically I'm not going to focus too much on utilitarianism here because it's been talked about a lot in the movement recently, which is great. Like this versus veganism kind of thing. Um, yeah, he talks about how people exploiting other animals in research often have utilitarian justifications for it. So basically, it's like it's okay to violate the rights of this individual because it's better for most people. He brings up at some point, I'm going to spoil because I remember that and I just want to talk about that real quick. Hold on. He talks about how we could say the same thing with like what we did to black people and Jewish people during like whenever they were exploited in research. We used the same freaking excuses, you know. They were involuntary subjects for experimentation, and yeah, one of the excuses was, well, it's better to use them than it is to use normal humans, right? But and it's gonna be good for most people. You can justify a lot of horrible things under the name of utilitarianism. Um, so that's a problem. But because it makes sense in when you read the definition of utilitarianism, you know, yeah, it makes sense. But it can have a lot of loopholes, which is a problem. Oh, Singer argues in Animal Liberation that the researchers don't take the interests of the animals equally into account. That's true. I mean, but the thing is, yeah. So yeah, okay, never mind. Let's read it because I think he addresses that. Page 16. Guys, these are my favorite lives. Swear to God, it's so much fun to me. Okay. And guys, if you have something directed at me and you'd like me to see it, for sure, please put an animal emoji in the message so that I can really know it's for me. Because sometimes there's a lot of discussions, which is great. Um, all right, so it can be hard to kind of find. Quote, given any reasonable view about the richness and variety of psychological life, it is unquestionably true, Frey believes, that the psychological life of a non human primate, or even of a cat or a dog, is richer and more varied than the psychological life of some human beings. For example, a child born with only the stem of the brain. Thus, if the moral defense of animal model research is supposed to lie in the good results, sorry, the further we are in the life, the more it's gonna be hard for my pronunciation. Allegedly produced by using these animals, the good results allegedly produced by using these animals, then a similar defense for utilizing marginal humans is at hand. To be consistent in their utilitarianism, therefore, Frey believes that researchers should be willing to conduct their studies on marginal humans. Researchers are unlikely to welcome Frey's finding. For his part, Frey is untroubled, insisting that researchers cannot have it both ways, using utilitarian modes of thinking when they believe it justifies their practice of using other than human animals in their studies, only to discard utilitarianism when its implications for the selection of marginal humans as research subjects are made manifest. End quote. Bam. uh, you made all the the freaking emojis. Thank you for doing this stream. Thank you for being here and watching it and interacting with me and the chat. That means a lot to me. I'm having a lot of fun. Thank you. Um, your English pronunciations are much better than my French pronunciations. Well, French I feel is especially hard, even for French people to learn, like the grammatical things, especially. But um, it's very hard for French people to pronounce English. Honestly, it's kind of the opposite language of French and English are very, very like it's one of the most different. Um, languages you could find in terms of the pronunciation and the sounds. It's so different, man. Getting hold of books is really hard lately. Then reading is just no. I never end up reading anything. I relate to that. It used to be a problem for me for sure. This is a great way for me to be held accountable to actually educate myself. um, and yeah. Anyways, thank you so much. Yeah, I get that. Anyways, let's go back to it. Yeah, it's gonna be so long, guys. It might be 5 hours. We're only at the end of the second page, and it's almost an hour in. I don't have an issue with that because if people watch and it's too long for them, they can break it down or something. But this is gonna be very big because it's every 2 months. So they gotta make it worth it. um, my voice will be out at the end, though. That's for sure. The right's view agrees with utilitarians that non human animals deserve moral consideration because of their sentience, and not just because treating them badly could impact humans negatively. It also agrees with Kant that what is right depends on the respectful treatment of the individual, their treatment as ends and not merely means. Quote, the rights view proposes is that of being the subject of a life, a criterion that specifies a set of psychological capacities. For example, the capacities to desire. Yeah, someone's knocking hard on my door, but I can't answer something. And my husband is in the shower, which is the worst thing, but whatever. Anyhow, a criterion that specifies a set of psychological capacities. Okay, let me restart. The criterion the rights view proposes is that of being the subject of a life, a criterion that specifies a set of psychological capacities. For example, the capacities to desire, remember, act intentionally, and feel emotions, as jointly sufficient for such value. At least some non human animals, for example, mammalian animals and birds, arguably possess these capacities. They are thus subjects of a life, and, given the rights view, to be treated as ends in themselves. End quote. I really like when people. Okay, I'm glad I didn't answer because I think they're canvassers. I don't care. I can't vote anyway, so I don't care. Anyways, um, political canvassers. So yeah, I really like when people describe sentience and being a subject of a life in more terms than just being able to feel pain. Meaning having emotions, desires, fears, to remember things like that, because there are things that overlap with plants when like they're alive, for example, and they have some sense of memory in some sense, like physical memory, because memory is not really completely stored in the brain, like it's not only that. But yeah, I like when people describe more than just the capacity to feel pain, because then people can understand that even if they don't feel pain, because for example, if you make sure that a non-human animal is not feeling pain while you're exploiting them, it's still not okay because, for example, they desire freedom, they need their own body sovereignty, and they have desires and fears and all this stuff. So yeah, I think it's really good to do that. I should do that more in outreach. Whoa, Lucy, I did see Tom Regan speak in person several times, so even though I never read his books completely cover to cover, I have a good understanding of his overall position. You're so lucky. I wish. I freaking wish. I really like his stuff. I mean, from what I've read, at least. We have knowledge now about the sentience of other animals in general, and I mean humans included, obviously, but that we knew because we are humans. But they all possess sentience. Obviously, we have the same um, I mean, we all, yeah, it's just a fact scientifically now. But we have, by the way, if you are not sure that that's true, you don't have to take my word for it. If there's non-vegans in the chat or whatever in watching, thank you for watching if you are. And just check in the description below. There are links to actual studies and everything. There's like a link to the Declaration of Consciousness, I think, which is about non-human animals being sentient, stuff like that. So, um, how can you be vegan and support terrorists like Hamas? Well, veganism is only about non-human animals. I don't think it was directed at me because I never talked about that anyway. But yeah, I think it's possible because it's completely two different. Like you can be sexist and anti-racist, for example. You know. So when people express concerns on people losing benefits if we were to stop research on non-human animals, we can point to them the to the same we can point them to the same problem when we stopped researching on non-consenting Black people or Jews. Um, okay, because this has been a very hot topic recently, I want to quote something that's relevant to that, so you'll know what I mean when I'm reading the quote. Quote, predatory animals obviously live off the death and flesh of their prey. Because the rights view accords prey animals the right to be treated with respect, some critics claim it to imply that we should intervene to stop predatory animals in their natural depredations. If we were to do this, however, then there would be no check on the ratio of predators to prey. Instead, the population of prey animals would explode, and this would irreparably damage the balance and sustainability of life forms within the larger life community. Advocates of the philosophy of animal rights have a number of possible replies to the predation problem. The principal one being the following: situations can and do arise where it is right to come to the assistance of another, whether the potential victim is a human or non-human animal. In these situations, however, the potential victim is not only at risk of serious injury, but also then less than capable of mounting a defense. For example, an elderly woman who is attacked by a psychotic killer or a puppy who is being tormented by children merits our intervention. The predator prey relationship seems to bear little resemblance to such cases. Most prey animals, most of the time, are perfectly capable of eluding their predators without anyone's assistance. Thus, it seems to be human arrogance, not informed responsibility, that leads humans to believe that the rights of wild animals obligate us to police nature. From an animal rights perspective, we have no general duty to intervene in predator-prey relations. That being so, the catastrophic environmental costs alleged to follow from acting on the rights view seem to be more fiction than fact. End quote. So, I don't know enough about, how you call it? I don't know, like, I don't know enough about, like, how the predator-prey relationship works, but I wouldn't necessarily agree that, you know, it's always super well balanced between predator and prey. Like, I don't see how that's necessarily the case. But anyways, even if it's the case, that's not really what I want to address. What I want to say is basically I agree completely. Like the problem I have, especially with people who not even when they don't, I mean, when they say it's a vegan thing, yeah, I have an issue with that because it's not that. But when they say that it's not a vegan issue, it's just a something we're talking about because we care about predatory prey animals, etc. Yeah, the big objection I have to it is that as much as I deeply care about the suffering and the horrors that are happening in um, nature, I guess it's not necessarily actually possible at all. Like it's gonna collapse the ecosystems completely. And I know there are answers for that, but I haven't really dipped my toes too much. I mean, I have, but not for like completely considering all the positions on this issue, because I think it's very distracting from actually making more vegans. But even if you believe that we should intervene, which I have sympathy for, I like sympathy. I have like I understand that. Um, you would still focus on making vegans first, because if think about it, if we have more vegans to deal with this, we could figure out something to help prey animals in some way, maybe like some type some I don't know, maybe there is something we could do to help them that wouldn't make the ecosystems crash. But there's no way we would actually achieve anything without having more vegans. So either way, even wherever you are on the spectrum on this debate on whether to intervene between predators and prey, like we have to make more vegans first, anyways. Like it's completely. I think it's not now to even think about it. To be honest, um, but yeah, veganism is obviously just about opposing the exploitation of other animals by humans. But outside of this even like having more vegans, like people who are more likely to intervene and to find better ways to do that without the whole ecosystems crashing, it's going to be vegans, you know. Agreed, Lucy. Animal rights is not like and human rights are not the same in any historical or most normative context. Ooh, guys, please put uh animals in your message. I know it's for me because it's a lot. Thoreau has a unique take on this. He says the moral obligation is to not contribute to or cause harm, not to intervene and try to end all harm. Yeah. And of course, we all know that. I mean, all know. Veganism, like the original definition, is not about harm at all. It's about exploitation by humans of non human animals. But yeah, I mean, I align with that in terms of like outside of veganism. Yes, I align with that more, even if it sucks as hell. But if in the future there was some type of technology or something, like remember George Martin was talking about, like what if there was something that could help them escape when they were basically, for example, if a gazelle is eaten alive by a lion and there's no way they're gonna escape, and so pain is just not serving the purpose of being able to be alarm bell to so that they can escape the scenario and be safe. And they're just suffering horribly in their death. Like maybe there is a technology that we could inject all of animals with something. I don't know, but that obviously could have horrible consequences if it went badly, obviously. So I don't know, but who freaking knows? Yeah. Anyhow, yeah, and also add that just as a reminder, just in case someone who watches doesn't necessarily know about the original definition of veganism, which is different, very different from the current vegan society one. And when I'm talking about the original definition, I'm talking about the origin definition of veganism by the Vegan Society in the UK, when they actually spent 7 years trying to figure out what the definition should be. And it's by Leslie Cross, especially, who was vice president, I think, of the Vegan Society in the 40s and 50s, actually, yeah, 50s, I think. I have, if you're interested in that, I have a podcast on YouTube and Spotify about the history of veganism, especially the Vegan Society and the coining of the word vegan. I'm specifically talking about that. Um, yeah, so if you want to check that out. And yeah, so according to that original definition of the Vegan Society, was about it's not about the number of deaths, like not about decreasing it or about decreasing suffering even. It's about exploitation, period, you know. Not saying that these aren't important, but there's a lot of problems with associating that with veganism. And I've talked about it at length in other videos and podcasts. So it's just a separate issue. Yeah. Anyways, so then he talks about deep ecology. Humans don't stand above or apart from nature, they stand within it. The natural world does not exist for us. Moral life should be viewed as experiential, not inferential. So there's a problem with the deep ecology kind of mentality. Is like we should align ourselves with the rules of nature as if they are rules, like basically the systems of the natural environment. We should kind of align our life with that in some sense. And there's this big appeal to nature fallacy here. Like it's kind of like a because of like nature is like this, and we should basically align ourselves with nature in the way nature works. It's very it's really yeah, it's an appeal to nature fallacy, like nature good basically. Anyhow, I'm not gonna spend too much time on this. But and then there's ecofeminism. Ecofeminism is the same ideology that sanctions oppression based. I don't know why I said the same. Oh, I don't know. That sanctions oppression based on gender, sanctions oppression based on race, class, and physical abilities, among other things. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. Also about the oppression of nature in general and non-human animals. Yeah, it's basically it sanctions all these types of oppressions, including the oppression of nature and non-human animals. Okay, similar to deep ecology, apart from the fact that deep ecology identifies the moral misstep in anthropocentrism, which is putting humans in the center of things. Which I mean, I agree with the fact that like nature or the rest of the world is not there for humans to serve humans. That's completely ludicrous, of course. But um, ecofeminism identifies the problem as lying in androcentrism, meaning male, putting the male at the center of all things. So since the 1970s, way more philosophical and theological interest in was developing in exploring the moral relationship between humans and other animals. There's a quote, page 24. To the extent, okay, quote, to the extent that institutional animal care and use committees and reformist legislation helps to perpetuate social acceptance of human exploitation of these animals, whether on the farm or in the laboratory, advocates of the right view will, or to be consistent, should withhold their support. What animal rights? Hold on. Okay. What animals? What animal rights advocates can consistently support are incremental steps that put an end to certain practices within the larger context of animal exploitation. For example, legislation that would prohibit the use of non-human animals in cosmetic testing and in drug addiction experiments, and the creation of policies that end compulsory vivisection and dissection in the classroom. By the way, guys, when I was in high school, there was this, they were dissecting frogs, and I was very much against that. I was plant based vegetarian, something like that. I didn't understand what veganism was, but anyways, I cared about that. But I was planning on like, um, saying like in class, I'm not gonna do it. But then actually that day I was sick at home, so I couldn't make my dramatic. Anyhow, it's funny. Maybe I subconsciously was knowing what day was gonna be, and I chose to just like, no, I'm just gonna stay at home instead of doing it very vocally. But anyways, what? So yeah, yeah. So he's. Yeah, so basically not like saying that new welfareism is not the way to go, which new welfareism is basically vegans who see the end of animal exploitation as the end goal, but they believe that welfare reforms will actually help us get us there. So it's basically saying like vegans should not support that, but that we should, but we could. I mean, he says animal rights advocates, but we should and could, we can oppose. No, we can. Yeah, we can support like the legislations and stuff like that that you know um, want the banning of, at least, like for example, banning of one um, sort of animal exploitation, even if it's not like all at once. We can support that. I would add to that that it's important to add the vegan message as a whole, like in those campaigns, because I had this conversation with David C. Arenas. We had a video on my channel. It's in the collaboration folder if you want to check it out. It was like last year. And we talked at some point about how single issue campaigns, which is what she's talking about, I think, is, yeah, it can be problematic because, I mean, it's usually problematic because instead of using that as an example to put the vegan message forward, there's a lot of people that are not vegan there, and they exploit other animals in other forms. For example, they eat their bodies, or they they might ride horses or whatever the hell, and they go to a demonstration against bullfighting. So they don't get it at all, and it reinforces the ignorance about veganism. Like, it just, you're not, you don't, and also like it makes them feel better about not being vegan because they're doing something, so they don't really have to stop exploiting. For example, it's interesting because he was talking about how like these same people that are opposing bullfighting in his country, for example, because he's in South America, it's a big thing there, especially, are actually people who are exploiting the bulls, the same freaking species, through the dairy industry, because they have to jerk off bulls. Literally, they have to, like, electrically, I think, I'm not sure, whatever. They basically sexually assault them, and they exploit their bodies and exploit them. And it's horror. And they go to the slaughterhouse, it's etc. But it's the same species. But anyways, it's just insane. So if you were, for example, like to go to a single issue campaign and then make it about veganism, using that as an example, but making it about veganism, I think that works. Um, yeah, check the rest of the conversation if you'd like to see that. Walkouts are a phenomenal sorry, way to protest. I knew a guy who walked out of my biology class when the teacher started discussing creationism. Yeah. What? No way. What? Creationism? You mean like God created things? No way. There's no way. Where? Interesting. That how? Okay, I don't understand. Also, anytime you see me very confused about religion, and especially like it's very confusing to be a French person who's non-religious or was brought up like that, and to go to the US because it's like so different. How like the state is like um it's a Christian state, like it's you swear on the Bible or something, like not swear on the Bible, it's not that, but I know that the state and the church is not separated, where in France it's a huge thing that it is separated. Thanks for being here, Vegan Animal Defender. Thanks for being here, Terry, again. And thanks for doing this. Well, thanks for being here. Without you being here, there's no point to making this. Anyways, I'm having a lot of fun. All right. So let's continue. Okay, so quote 29. Yeah, I got this book, and this person was doing this. I don't know if you can see, she highlighted. I know it's a she because it's written Lisa blah blah. I'm not gonna say her name, but it's a secondhand book. But I think it's bad to do that, honestly. Like, if you have a book and you highlight, I think it's bad because you could give it to someone else or to a library, and maybe libraries don't accept. I don't think they accept, or at least mine doesn't accept books that are not in good condition, and that includes highlighting. And that's a shame because having second, like giving your books away to a library, especially, is very powerful. As a, if it's an animal rights book or any book, really, it's a waste. This was from I bought it online, but yeah, I would encourage people to not write on their books and instead write on a piece of paper if you want to write, but putting it in the book instead of on the book itself. Um, okay, 29. I have to enlarge this thing. The plain fact, as a quote, the plain fact is that not all descriptions of animal advocacy mean the same thing. How one chooses to describe the cause one advocates, therefore, is not merely a matter of semantics. Totally agree. It's very important, actually. Semantics are very important in a movement. It's very important, especially when the vegan definition has been anything and everything. Honestly, it's been like a lot of different things. And it's important to have the best definition, the most concise and to the point, and the most bulletproof definition you can have, for example, in terms of just the definition. But how you talk about like veganism is very important, I think, in advocacy, subconsciously and everything. Like, it's very important. Anyways, quote, no longer, where, okay, no longer do we confront the old rhetoric of disdainful dismissal, the one that lumped together all animal advocates as cranks, lunatics, freaks, or simple minded members of an adult army of little old ladies in tennis shoes. This old rhetoric is dead or dying. In its place is a new rhetoric, an incendiary rhetoric, a rhetoric of vitriolic accusation. Today, members of the animal rights movement commonly are said to be fanatics, extremists, radicals, or, the most frequently used verbal bomb, terrorists. Indeed, it is not unusual to find people using the terms animal rightist and terrorist interchangeably as if they were synonyms. End quote. I have a quote, like a quote. I have a book on that. It's not in view. Anyways, it's a Green is the New Red. It's about how animal rights activists and environmental activists have been um, relocated to like the terrorist type of crime or something. I think in the 80s, it was because obviously it's a PR, like PR, not like it's a slander campaign against them by the industries that exploit other animals. It worked really well, but also it's so that they like we'll talk about that later. Actually, I'm not going to go into too much into that because Bold Native is definitely, it's about the Animal Liberation Front, so we're going to talk about this. And also we'll talk about it when in the one of the last chapters it talks about this, and it was really, really, really cool. So I'm not going to talk more about this, but we'll touch on the terrorist thing more later. um so he talks about how anti-cruelty is not enough. So making it about cruelty is not really good as it's not good as an animal advocate. He explains that in the quote. Historically, to prohibit cruelty to animals has amounted to prohibiting the infliction of unnecessary or unjustified pain, especially when the pain is substantial and the human agent has acted wantonly or maliciously and with intent. End quote. So when cruelty occurs isn't even agreed on, so that's one problem. Establishing the intent of the person is very difficult, he says. What's necessary or not is also subjective and relative. So the researchers that use other, non-human animals, or that used, Jews or Black people in the past, said it was necessary to exploit them. and even their pain, whatever. So yeah, non-human animal use doesn't have to be cruel, whatever cruelty can mean to someone, to be wrong. For example, using the like taking an egg away from a hen who's, for example, living a life without suffering, let's say, is not cruel necessarily, but it's still exploiting them, still seeing that hen as a resource, and that is the root of the issue. That is the cause of everything that we see. That's happening to non-human animals. So that's the root um, of the problem. So we should just dispose of that completely. No space for that. Um, just one example. So being pro animal, I'm talking about why he talks about this. He talks about these things, and some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is not necessarily from the book. It's my own, something that popped in my head while I was reading it, but most of it is from the book. I'm going to try to remember, like, I'm going to try to say when it's just my thoughts or if it's just in the book, but sometimes it might not be remembered. So sorry about that. Being pro-animal welfare means agreeing with their status of slave or commodity for human use. So that's definitely something he said. Quote button before. So guys, remember to put an animal in your message to make sure that I can see that it's for me, directed at me particularly. Oh, I saw this. Are there gonna be spoilers for the Bold Native? Because I didn't watch it yet. Yes. So it's gonna be at the end that we're gonna talk about Bold Native. If you haven't watched the movie and you want to watch it, by the way, it's free online and it's in the description. I believe I linked it in the description of this. Pretty sure it's for free, completely online. Please just don't watch the end when I'm gonna say we're gonna talk about Bold Native. Don't watch the end of that, and just come back when we're doing the voting, and you will know when we're doing the voting because it will not be this. Look, I'm gonna show you. It will not be this anymore. Come back when I'm talking about this, when you can see this. I mean, if you can, but anyways, yeah, it's gonna be spoilers. Obviously, I'm gonna show some excerpts from the movie because it's too good. And yeah, so yeah, be careful. I'm not sure what TC means. Sorry. Being against single issue campaigns makes no sense to me. It's like saying saving one animal from a farm is worthless because you can save them all. I didn't say I'm against. I'm not sure if you're talking to me, but I didn't say I'm against single issue campaigns. I'm saying I'm against it if you're not putting the vegan message up front because it's a problem. It's a problem not to do that, you know. I've already explained, but anyways. Okay. Oh. 34. Quote, "It should not be surprising that the loudest, most powerful voices speaking in the name of animal welfare today are those of individuals who have an interest in perpetuating institutionalized utilization of non-human animals. By this, I mean that those who identify themselves with the cause of animal welfare increasingly are those who speak for the commercial animal agriculture community and the biomedical community, for example." End quote. Yeah, because they figured out that, oh, wait, we could charge people more for exploiting other animals. Like, why wouldn't we do that? People feel better about it now. It's perfect. It's the perfect PR campaign. Are you kidding? So yeah, it's not it. Thanks, Vegan Animal Defender, for coming back after when we, yeah, you know what I mean. I would say when it comes to exploiting someone, we're always objectifying them, but not always commodifying them. What do you think? I think I understand what you mean in the sense of like, I mean, I'm not sure. Let me know if I understood right, but to me that means that, I mean, I use them interchangeably, to be honest, but objectifying someone doesn't mean you're like selling them or like buying them or something. Is that what you mean? They're not on the market necessarily, but like women, if you put women in the scenario instead. So maybe that's what you mean. I don't know. I use it the same, to be honest. Maybe it's because I'm not native English speaker. Maybe it's a mistake. I'm not sure. Let me know if it is. It's possible. Okay. Quote, when a system is unjust to the core, respect for justice demands abolition. I'm going to put that one on my fridge, man. It's too good. Oh, hold on. I have to write it down. I can't believe I didn't think of that before. It's too good. It's beautiful. It's a very short, powerful way to explain veganism. Let me put it down. I think that's Regan. Yeah, that's a quote from Regan because I didn't specify, so that means it's Regan. Okay. Quote, the true objective for which animal advocates should work, according to the rights view, is not, hold on, wait, is not to provide non-human animals with larger cages, but to empty them, end quote. It's beautiful. Regan believes that vegans saying that they are for animal liberation is accurate, but it can be misunderstood. So explains that. Um, it's so dark outside. Okay. Trying to find the end of it. I think. Oh, well, I'll know it when I see it. Anyways, whatever. I can't find it. So the quote is. Oh god damn it. I lost it. Um. Okay. Yeah. One possible basis for animal liberation is an egalitarian interpretation of interests. Singer, 1975. On this view, the interests of everyone affected by what we do must be taken into account. And equal interests must be counted equally. If only we would do this, we are to suppose animals would be liberated. So it's basically talking about utilitarianism. I believe that this understanding of animal liberation is profoundly mistaken. To make this clearer, consider the case of chattel slavery. There is no question that the interests of slaves were often grossly ignored, and that when they were considered, they were almost never counted equitably. This much granted, someone might maintain that the fundamental basis for the call to liberate human slaves amounted to the dual demand for the interest, one, not to be ignored, and two, be counted equitably. This is not true. Merely to count the interests of slaves equitably is not equivalent to liberating them. Why? Because slaves can have their interests counted equitably and still remain in bondage. Why? Because there is no guarantee that, once their interests are counted equitably, they should be liberated. Whether they should be liberated will depend on the interests other people have, including the interests of slave owners. Everyone's interests need to be taken into account, and the interests of all need to be weighed equitably. If the results of canvassing interests in this way yield one answer, the slaves should be liberated. If not, then not. Now, this way of thinking about human liberation has got things backward. It is not that, in the face of a system of chattel slavery, we first insist on counting everyone's interests equitably and then see whether slaves should be liberated. My husband is yeah. Um, fixing my pronunciation. Hey, can you turn on the light, please? Thank you. Equitably, thank you. All right. Where was I? God damn it. All right. Okay. Yeah. Rather, we first recognize the moral imperative to liberate them on grounds other than counting equal interests equally. Put another way, after human slaves have been liberated, then one might attempt to argue that a fair way to decide between competing social policies is to count everyone's interests and count equal interests equally. But it is profoundly mistaken, I believe, to argue that before we can decide whether human slaves should be liberated, we first need to count everyone's interests, both slaves and slave owners alike, and count equal interests equally. The interests of those who profit from slavery should play no role whatsoever in deciding whether to abolish the institution that furthers those interests. The fact that the interests of slaves have not counted equitably by are not counted equitably by their oppressors proves to be a symptom, not the underlying cause, of the great evil human slaves are made to endure. I'm trying to find the end of this quote just to make sure. Oh, I found it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. Continuing on with the quote. This great evil is rooted in systematic injustice. It is the right of slaves to be free, not to be treated as another's property or used as a mere means to another's end. A system of chattel slavery systematically violates these basic moral rights, not the principle that we must count equal interests equally. The very concept of liberation makes sense only if it is viewed against the backdrop of unjust oppression. And although the notion of unjust oppression no doubt assumes many guises, it is incomprehensible to me how we might understand it apart from the idea of the violation of basic moral rights. What is true of human liberation is no less true of animal liberation. That the interests of non-human animals are not counted, or when they are not counted equitably, is a symptom, not the underlying cause of their systematic exploitation. End quote. Yeah, that was a long one, but it's too good I couldn't end it. Anyhow, all right. Um, yeah, at some point he talks about, like the right of life. And I don't mention that ever actually anymore because it doesn't really make sense to me. Like, I understand it. Like, I think he's gonna talk about this more, I think. But anyways, like, the reason why I don't use that anymore is that, yeah, humans are said to have a right to life. And I understand in the sense of like, well, we shouldn't murder other animals. But the problem is that maybe it works. Okay, never mind. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of, but maybe he takes it into account. I'll wait for if he actually talks about that. I'm not exactly sure, but well, we'll see. Anyways, a new thing with the All right. Another way to understand animal liberation, the one he agrees with, Regan, is the recognition of the rights of other animals. Animal liberation is the goal for which animal rights is the philosophy. So, yeah, so after this is the part of the book now when where he's addressing some of the criticisms about the case for, I mean, the criticisms he received 10 years, before this, defending animal rights. For the case for animal rights, he wrote in 1983. So it's more than 10 years. Hold on, what? Okay, so I guess he had written about these criticisms before. Yeah, okay, yeah. He had this is like from other things, like a lot of this book is just not written or just for this book in 2001. It was written before and he's publishing it in a book. So, quote, throughout history, scurrilous attacks on the messenger have been a familiar way to attempt to discredit the message. Yeah, end quote. So ad hominem's basically. Guys, this is the most random place to say that, but I literally just thought about it. I got my freaking green card. So I'm very happy. Obviously, that's why I have a Patreon now. By the way, the Patreon link is in the description if you want to help my activism and stuff. Because this is my full-time occupation. I mean, that's all I'm doing. So that would help. But yeah, so that's really exciting. I can stay in the US as long as I want, apparently. Yeah, thank you. I can work and I can own property. I have a joke with my husband about that. Never mind. Okay, right to life gives people the perception that what we care about is their right not to be killed. We should much rather say right not to be used. Exactly. That's part of my problem with it. Because like the right not to be killed doesn't really make sense in the sense of, like accidental death, for example, like when you're walking on the sidewalk and even if you're looking, which I am looking when I work on the sidewalk, not to crush them, but it happens once in a while, like that there's an accident. And what about the right to life then? Like what, I don't know. And also in self-defense, like I don't know. Maybe I don't understand it properly, which I'm not sure it's possible. Stay in the US as long as you want to stay there. Well, I mean, my husband is here. That's why. And also we're just good here. And I want to speak in English, and activism in English is much more efficient, I think, and much more, not efficient, but much more impactful, because you can have most, most, it's just a universal language. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people just don't know any French. So that would be a problem for me, amongst other reasons. So I'm glad. That's a big one, actually. And also my husband wants to stay here, and me too, so whatever. Uh, but it's a different thing, when you're not from a country, it's much more exotic. It's a different appeal. Um, Quote, animal rights is more than a philosophical idea. It is also the name of a socio-political movement, the animal rights movement. Hold on. 10 million strong in the United States and among the fastest growing progressive causes in America, this movement espouses uncompromisingly abolitionist goals. Judged by contemporary standards, they may seem radical to most people, including most philosophers. The movement seeks, for example, to bring an end to the use of non human animals in biomedical research rather than satisfy itself with increasing the size of laboratory cages. Not larger cages, the movement declares, empty cages. End quote. So he said, like 10 million, but that was like in 2001. Quote, throughout history, scurrilous attacks on the messenger have been a familiar way to attempt to I already read that, so I didn't say the one before, sorry. So there's a quote from the case for animal rights um, that I added to this. It wasn't in the book, I just wanted to, I think he referred to it in this book and I wanted to quote that. So the quote is, individuals are subjects of a life if they have beliefs and desires, perception, memory, and a sense of the future, including their own future, an emotional life together with feelings of pleasure and pain, preference, and welfare interests, the ability to initiate action in pursuit of their desires and goals, a psychophysical identity over time, and an individual welfare in the sense that their experiential life fares well or ill for them, logically independently of their utility for others, and logically independently of their being the object of anyone else's interests. Those who satisfy the subject of a life criterion themselves have a distinctive kind of value, inherent value, and are not to be viewed or treated as mere receptacles. End quote. I wanted to say something real quick. Like I wrote it down. So basically, what drives me insane when it comes to philosophy is that some philosophies are based on false things, and we know it now through science, and it's very obvious. For example, other animals aren't sentient. Like some are literally based on that, like Cartesian thinking with the way they view other animals, and that humans are the only ones being able to reason, which and have emotions, which have been debunked. For example, chicks are able to count from birth. There have been studies on that. Even just this is one example. For example, like pigs are able to be to play video games and stuff like this. So it's insane. And emotions, we all know. There's in the description below if you want to see some studies. But and the problem I have with that is that these philosophies will be considered uh to be important philosophies, and they will still be talked about as being important, even if they've been proven to be completely wrong. Um, Yeah, for example, like there's a he talks about Frey, who is a who is a utilitarian, and he believes that other animals aren't able to reason at all, intend or plan, or to have any preferences, for example. And he's like a philosopher in Regan's time, like in the 80s or something. And we know he's wrong. It's just factually wrong. It's being proven wrong, and it's still considered to be a philosophy, to that somehow has some type of ground to stand on. I just don't understand the ground, no leg to stand on. Um, yeah, it's just so. I'm from France. Sorry, I don't know why everyone is putting watermelons everywhere. I don't know why either. Okay. Quote: inherent value is logically distinct from, not reducible to, and not a function of the other kinds of values previously mentioned. Sorry, I didn't quote that, but whatever. A woman's moral status as an end in herself, as one who possesses inherent value, is logically independent of her happiness, talents, usefulness, and so on. Unquote. Quote, inherent value is a categorical concept, meaning that it does not come in degrees, An individual either has it or not, and all those who have inherent value have it equally. End quote. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is what. Yeah. Okay, he talks about something that was very interesting to me. So, no, actually, I've had that in outreach, but it's nice to see it in words like that in the book. But people sometimes confuse the idea of inherent value with the like super different idea of individual welfare. For example, people will say that it's okay to exploit other animals because their life is bad in nature anyways, and but doesn't address their inherent value, meaning their moral status. You can replace the non-human animal with a human here, which is usually a way to make it very clear for people what we're talking about. It's okay to exploit severely mentally disabled people because their life is bad anyways. That's the same argument, basically. Which is something I have. It's insane that it's confused for some reason. But it is. He was talking about that because there was this. Yeah, Frey, the philosopher I just talked about. He confuses the two for some reason. So, as a critique of Regan's philosophy and stuff. It's weird in his critique. So in Regan's view, only moral agents can violate another's rights. It's a whole thing in and of itself. But he believes that we don't only have the duty not to violate the rights of others, but that we assist them. I personally half agree because it can be tricky to have that kind of like mindset. Because I mean, I obviously think all vegans should be advocates and stuff, but in that same logic, like, do we have to be an activist in all for all kinds of victims, like all the types of victims? Then, because if we have an obligation to assist them, then it's too many victims. Like, there's too many types of victims to represent. I just don't. I don't really understand. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see how it would be possible. Like the reason why I focus on animal rights solely is because it's like the least represented victims proportionally to the other types of victims. It's like trillions per year compared to millions or billions of humans suffering from something or whatever, or some kind of justice. So it's obvious to me why we should focus on the victims that are least represented, because that's the point we're having, different movements for different victims, is because these victims are underrepresented in society in general, so we need a movement completely just about them. Like, you can't make everything, like, you can't make a movement about everything then, because it's just, I don't know, it just makes no sense. But anyway, I don't exactly know what he means by that. um Quote, I do not maintain that we owe nothing to those in need who are not victims of injustice. Hold on. What I do maintain is that we do not owe anything to such individuals on the grounds of justice. Thus, there is nothing in my theory that would preclude recognizing a duty to warn the hiker about the free falling boulder. The point is only that we owe the warning for reasons other than the demands of justice. For free falling boulders violate no one's rights. End quote. Regan believes that we don't only have value we don't only have the duty not to violate the rights of others. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I keep reading myself like yeah, I'm getting hungry, that's why. But yeah, we just love the fruit. Well, that's fine. Some feminists think that the idea of rights is patriarchal. So we're going back to ecofeminism, um, which really triggered the hell out of me, to be honest, when I was reading it. Uh, okay, I lost my page. Yeah, so some feminists think that the idea of rights is patriarchal in and of itself because men had the idea of it first and used it to benefit themselves and not women. Quote page 54. So it is okay. Quote, surely it is absurd to imagine that Euclid's definition of a right triangle is a symptom of male domination, or that it arbitrarily favors in any way whatsoever the interests of men over those of women. Logically, the fact that a man discovers, creates, or simply says something does not entail that what is discovered, created, or said is tainted by male prejudice. End quote. Uh, Quote, various people over time have used the idea of genetic inheritance as a basis for classifying the members of some race superior and other inferior. Does this show that the idea of genetic inheritance is a racist idea? Clearly not. What it shows is something very different, namely that some people have used the idea of genetic inheritance as in a racist fashion. The same is true of individual rights. One cannot logically infer that the idea of the rights of the individual is tainted with male bias because biased men have used it to forward their interests at the expense of women's. Yeah. So to me, it's very obvious, but yeah, it's just. Ugh. Carrie said, I just finished my crochet project. Not that anyone cares. It's an achievement. Um, go me. Sorry to interrupt. No, go you. That's really cool. Congratulations. It is an achievement, actually. Yeah, you said it's an achievement. Yeah. Cool. So we talked already about Jeremy Bentham briefly, but so he was a 19th century British utilitarian. He ridicules moral rights as nonsense upon stilts. For both him and Singer, non-human animals and humans don't have moral rights. Oh, oh my God, we're into Cohen. Yeah, there was this whole thing about this whole chapter, I think, about Cohen, who is a philosopher, and it was triggering as hell. Uh, yeah, it was this. Okay. So, Cohen says that non-human animals don't have the rights, but that all humans have basic moral rights, including the right to life and bodily integrity. Cohen argues that it would be wrong not to use other animals for research. It's actually a moral obligation to use them, and more should be used. It's a utilitarian argument, obviously. He says other animals cannot have rights. Uh, Yeah, like I said something that I thought like I always am wary of like wary? Is it wary? Yeah, wary. I'm confusing wary and weary. I mean wary of when people say something like um something is unique about humans because throughout like I mean in history and just like even recently we've discovered that what we thought was unique um to humans actually was not at all unique to humans. And because think so highly of ourselves and so lowly, I guess, of other animals. We think we're the only ones who have that, and because we don't perceive them to have these things because they express them maybe in different ways or not as obviously or as uh I guess expertly in some ways, for example, reason, then they must not have it or something. For example, reason, sentience, desires, fears, all this stuff. So always be very careful about that. If someone says like only humans have that, I think that's a red flag, and we have to be careful. um, yeah, for example, empathy. We know other like some at least other animals have empathy, especially social animals like social species. It's part of being a social species to have empathy. The ability to count, like it's all been proven wrong so far. So um, Cohen believes in the humane treatment of other animals, that they aren't moral agents and that they are subjects of a life. Pretty much, he agrees with that. The fact that they are subjects of a life, um, but they aren't moral agents. Quote: If Cohen's arguments against other animals have rights were successful, oh, sorry. Quote: If Cohen's arguments against other animals having rights were successful, these same arguments would also show mutatis mutandis, whatever it means, that we have no duties to them. End quote. Oh yeah, so I actually searched it. Mutandis means with the necessary changes. Guys, I'm gonna get a little thing to eat because I'm very hungry. It's been 2 hours. I'll be back in like a couple minutes. Please make sure to like and subscribe. That would help me out a lot if you like this live, and I'll be right back. Um, I'm back. Thank you for being patient. I can see a lot of people um, have gone, which makes sense. Hopefully they watch later or they come back. Um, thanks so much for coming, Carrie. Thank you so much. Okay, well, thank you for being here, right, too. And yeah, okay, let's continue. Thank you for the patience. I need to eat something. So, where were we? Okay, so the amorality rights argument is basically one: other animals live in an amoral world, a world where nothing is right or wrong. For example, quote, "Do you believe that baby zebra has the right not to be slaughtered by that lioness? Does that lioness have the right to kill that baby zebra for her cubs? If you're inclined to say, confronted by such natural rapacity, duplicated 1,000, a million times each day on planet Earth, that neither is right or wrong, and that neither has a right against the other, I am on your side. Rights of the highest moral consequence, yes, but zebras and lions and rats are amoral. There is no morality for them. They do no wrong ever. In their world, there are no rights." End quote. It's a quote by Cohen, by the way. So the immorality rights arguments: one, other animals live in an amoral world. So that was an example of this, explaining this. Two, those who live in an amoral world have no rights. Three, therefore, animals have no rights. That's what he thinks. Okay, so where's that? Okay, quote. That's a quote by Regan. Let us agree that it makes no sense to say that the baby zebra has a right not to be killed by the lioness, or that the lioness has a duty not to kill the baby zebra. From this, Cohen would have us infer that it makes no sense to say that the baby zebra, or any other animal for that matter, has a right against us. For example, the right not to be killed for us for no good reason. Not only does this not follow, it is inconsistent with Cohen's claims about our duties to animals. Cohen refuses the case from marginal cases. The ability to have moral judgment is what makes it okay to exploit other animals but not humans. But if a human is mentally disabled and doesn't have that ability, Cohen says that still they aren't to be exploited because they are human and retain their rights when disabled. So basically, that would make like the fact that, like using um, the belonging to a certain group is the reason why you discriminate on someone, which is insane. Like it's literally why racist are racist and etc. A morally irrelevant trait. Anyways, so then there's the right kind argument. One, individuals have rights if and only if they are the right kind of being. Two, all and only humans are the right kind of being, that is, have the capacities that make possession of rights possible. Three, therefore, all and only humans have rights. That's what Cohen thinks. Lower. Okay, quote by Regan. Imagine that a university annually awards a scholarship in mathematics. Will anyone suggest that we may fairly decide who deserves it without bothering to ask about the mathematical abilities of the several candidates, considered individually? Why should our judgment concerning which individuals possess rights be any different? Okay, yeah, cool. That's a long quote. Sorry about that. So, continuing the quote. To make my misgivings plainer, consider the following Gedanken experiment. Imagine that a party of extraterrestrials, let us suppose it is E.T. and his friends, make contact with us humans. They give every indication of possessing those capacities Cohen believes are essential features of being human. Suppose further that the capacities they share are not essential, not typical of the species to which they belong. E.T. and his cohort are genetic aberrations, cruising the universe in search of others of their kind. Given Cohen's view, these extraterrestrials lack rights. Indeed, they cannot possibly have them. Why? Because those capacities they possess, as the individuals they are not essential to the kind of being they happen to be. Sorry, E.T., we will have to say, but you and your friends do not have any rights. But why? E.T. asks. We have all the capacities you humans have. Yes, we reply, but we have them because they are essential to the kind of being we are, while your having them is some sort of genetic accident. On any credible account of rights, E.T. and his cohort have them not because or only if they are the right kind, but because they as individuals have rights conferring capacities. In this sense, contrary to Cohen, relevant criteria for possessing rights do serve as a screen for sorting, not for humans only, but for all would-be candidates. It is for this reason that, Cohen's right kind argument notwithstanding, the question whether any non-human animals qualify remains open. End quote. So then there's the community argument. 1. All and only those individuals have rights who are members of communities in which the idea of rights arises. 2. Within the terrestrial sphere, the idea of rights arises only in the human community. 3. Therefore, within that sphere, all and only humans have rights. Regan says there is a distinction between 1. How it is possible for an idea to arise, its origins, and 2. The range of objects or individuals to which or to whom the idea may be intelligibly applied. Quote, oh, hold on. Okay, cool. Quote, consider the following example. As far as we know, ideas such as those of the notions of the central nervous system and genes are ideas that arise only among humans because only humans have the requisite cognitive capacities to form them. Nonetheless, the range of entities to which these ideas apply is not necessarily limited to members of the community in which these ideas arise. Indeed, not only this is the scope of these ideas not necessarily limited to humans, but there are literally billions and billions of non-human animals to whom the ideas are correctly applied, who have, that is, genes and a central nervous system. Rights are conceptually no different. I grant that, as far as we know, the idea of rights arises only among humans because only humans have the requisite cognitive capacities to understand it. Nevertheless, the range of entities to which this idea applies is not necessarily limited to members of the community in which the idea arises. Logically, to make this inference would be to make the same mistake made by one who infers that wolves cannot have genes or that the Cohen's dog cannot have a central nervous system because these animals do not belong to a community in which these ideas arise. End quote. Yeah. Cool, Carrie. Nice to see you here. Awesome. Cool. Oh, lost so many people in my break. Okay. There's another quote I wanted. This is very. I never heard of that guy. Never heard of this. Like this exact person's stuff. So I think it's worth reading about. Um, Quote, his central arguments, the amorality rights argument, the right kind argument, and the community argument, are deeply, seriously, and in my opinion, irredeemably flawed. End quote. That was kind of funny. Okay. Quote, far too much moral importance is attached to being a person. But okay, we're halfway through. Oh god. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought it would be. Okay. Um we're halfway through, but that doesn't mean we're halfway through the book. I think we're mostly we did more than half of the book here because then it's just bold native. It's shorter bold native. Okay, quote mid. Quote, that someone is a person is morally relevant, certainly, but that being a person makes one morally superior or confers on that individual moral rights no other living being can possibly possess. These claims seem to me to be more in the nature of arrogant dogma than reasoned belief. End quote. Yep. Um, it's hard to find. Oh, sorry, I found it. Okay. Quote, the philosophical considerations that ground the rights of non human animals are the same considerations that most adequately ground the rights of human beings, the most vulnerable among us in particular. End quote. Yeah. To Regan, it's not only persons that should have rights, but individuals, subjects of life. Persons are unique in some ways. It doesn't make them morally superior, though. So there's positive rights and negative rights. Positive rights are the right to be helped or assisted. Negative rights are the right not to be harmed or interfered with. He talks about the moral tie. He made that term. He created it. The moral tie. It is morally wrong routinely to override the rights of some individuals merely on the ground that others will benefit. Okay, quote, rights need not be absolute, that is, permitting of no possible exceptions to be rights. End quote. So, for example, an individual that is very sick and very contagious needs to be quarantined against their will for a bit. So their right to liberty is overridden in this instance. It's like the exception. Thanks. Thanks for modding other actors. That's really good. That's very helpful. And also, thanks for watching it after. Awesome. So let's continue. Quote, our justification in overriding the rights of the infected people depends on the number of individuals whose rights are at stake, not on the amount that different individuals will benefit. End quote. Yeah, that's important to keep in mind, this thing. Something he talks about reminds me of of this. If we have advocated for veganism by talking about how beneficial it is to humans to be vegan, what happens if there comes a time when there isn't a benefit to be gained by the human to not exploit the other animals around him? Or when it comes to the forms, it also like when it comes to the forms of non-human animal exploitation that can never be detrimental to humans in serious ways. Yeah, for example, no, not detrimental, what? Hold on. Yeah, I don't understand why I wrote that. Never mind, scratch that. So, the conclusion of this chapter is hmm. God damn it. Oh, okay. Okay, I found it. Sorry, damn it. I have to have a better system for quotes because this is not working. Quote, recall the third of the widely shared beliefs stated at the outset. All persons and only persons do have rights. If by persons we mean rational and autonomous agents, if individuals have rights when it is wrong routinely to harm them merely so that others will benefit, and if it is wrong routinely to harm children, including those who lack the potential to become persons, for this reason, then it is false that all and only persons actually possess rights. Yeah, because they're not necessarily rational or autonomous. For example, marginal cases and stuff. Yep. Okay, yeah. After that, he enters a chapter that's very good. I think it's very rich. It's basically a history of oppression in other, basically showing the similarities between different kinds of human oppression and animal oppression, mostly. So okay, he points that there were plenty of Christian apologists when it came to chattel slavery, even some actual black Christian slaves who supported slavery from a Christian point of view, like Jupiter Hammond. That blew my mind. I had no idea. Um, this is a great chapter, guys. It's gonna be fun. Okay. Um, I had a great time reading it. It actually blew my mind in a bunch of ways. The end of the book, especially, because like we kind of toward the kind of the end, the second half of the book, let's say. It's gonna be good. Okay, let me find it. Okay, this. Okay, cool. Quote, both Armstrong and Hammond rest their case on the Bible, not only what it says, but also what it does not. Among the relevant passages is this one from Paul's epistle to the Ephesians. Quote, slaves, obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling in singleness of heart, as you obey Christ, not only while being watched, and in order to please them, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. Render service with enthusiasm as to the Lord and not to men and women, knowing that whatever good we do, we shall receive the same from the Lord, whether we are slaves or free. End quote. Yeah, this blew my mind. Anyhow, quote, slavery can involve sinful behavior, as when a master beats a slave for the pleasure of doing so. But according to Armstrong, the fact that masters can act sadistically and thus sinfully is not an essential but only an incidental aspect of slavery, something that in principle can be minimized as the institution approaches the ideal of, to use Armstrong's words, a Christian slavery. Does this ring a freaking bell to you? Oh my god, this is crazy. Isn't this insane? Yeah, this one was like, okay, yeah, I need to post something about this. No, I really do. I'm gonna actually underline this. But this is freaking like we can do a lot, I think, content wise with this chapter on the history, like the different oppressions and doing stuff like this. Oh yeah, Troll of Truth. Um, bye. It's annoying. You're in timeout. Okay. Um. This is insane. Okay, yeah. So, quote, okay, so obey them, oh yeah, quote, obey them must, Hammond believes, even if their masters treat them cruelly. Quote, if a servant strives to serve his master, I believe there are but few masters who would use such a servant cruelly. If your master is really hard, unreasonable, and cruel, there is no way so likely for you to convince him of it as always to obey his commands and try to serve him and take care of his interest and try to promote it all in your power. As Hammond optimistically observes, good servants frequently make good masters. Unquote. Very, very much victim blaming here, huh? you're not obeying nicely. I mean, well enough for your master to treat you well, actually. So sorry, I have a weird sense of humor. Like, I'm not laughing disrespectfully here. It's just it's so dark. Quote me. mm, Trying to find a quote. Okay, yeah. Quote: the burden of the white owners to bring yeah. Okay, in the minds of Armstrong and Jupiter Hammond, um, the burden of the white owners to bring their degraded, ignorant, stupid, wicked slaves to the acceptance of Jesus Christ as their Redeemer was in their minds a heavy one. Oh, God. Um, so, yeah, end quote, of course. Scientists like Van Every declared that black people had smaller brains than white people on average, and this meant they were less intelligent. Okay, yeah, we're entering very triggering territory, especially for I don't know. Anyways, everything is triggering in this live, I think, but I don't know. Okay, quote: Van Every also uses his small brain theory to explain why blacks cannot grasp abstract ideas, which in turn explains why they cannot read. My husband just laughing. It's just so freaking. Which in turn explains why they cannot read, write, or speak properly. When the linguistic skills of individual blacks are offered as counter instances to his findings, Van Every replies that, like trained parrots, who do not understand what they say but who say it admirably well nonetheless, blacks were able to use a language exhibit borrowed, not to use a language exhibit borrowed, not real knowledge. I'm sorry, I find that atrociously hilarious because it's insane. Wow. Okay. So yeah, imagine if this was a thing. Just think about, like, if this was a belief that was widely accepted, because it was at some point. What we could be in the same point in time concerning other types of victims, couldn't we? Yeah, dark humor. Yeah, my humor is very dark. It's not everybody's cup of tea, I think, but I mean, I think you have to at some point when you're an activist because it's just it's too dark. Um, mm, we know we're doing that with non-human animals, but okay. Um, he said some other outrageous things about Native Americans, but you get the drift. I don't need to read all the horrible things. It doesn't really matter. We get it. Okay, quote: Samuel Cartwright, a well regarded physician from Louisiana, weighed in with his explanation of what he called the peculiarities of the Negro race. Two ailments, drapetomania and dysesthesia ethiopica, were especially, it's like the words even are insane, were is like Ethiopica is like because you come from Ethiopia, you would have this issue. I don't know. Were especially, okay, sorry, two ailments, blah, 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 were especially troublesome. Drapetomania was manifested by a single symptom. Slaves suffering from this malady wanted to run away. By contrast, signs of dysesthesia ethiopica, also known as rascality, were numerous and included talking back, fighting with masters, refusing to work, destroying property, and insensibility to pain. when the unfortunate individual is subjected to punishment, Cartwright writes, he neither feels pain of any consequence, nor experiences any resentment more than stupid sulkiness. In some cases, there appears to be an almost total loss of feeling. Like children, he writes, slaves are constrained by unalterable physiological laws to love those in authority over them. Hence, from a law of nature, the Negro can no more help loving a kind master than a child can help loving her that gives it suck. End quote. It's the art of God, after all. Black people and non-human animals have it rough in God's kingdom. Anyways, okay, let me. I want to know if you say stuff. Oh, you're back. No, I'm banning you, Troll of Truth, because it's not very interesting. And also, you're like making the chat about something that, other than the live, and it's annoying. Okay. Do you see why I love this thing? Like I don't know. I feel like the comparison, and we only just started, but the comparison is just interesting. Both religion and, I mean, between non-human animals and humans in this sense, both religion and science are institutions that have been used to defend chattel slavery. Guess what? Has been used to defend, non-human animal slavery, etc. Okay, now we're moving on to misogyny and stuff. Okay. So this is an excerpt from a New York Herald editorial, The Women's Rights Convention, the last act of the drama, dated September 12, 1852. How did women first become subject to man, as she now is all over the world? By her nature, her sex, just as the Negro is and always will be, to the end of time, inferior to the white race, and therefore doomed to subjection, but happier than she would be in any other condition, just because it is the law of her nature. End quote. I should make oh my god, I'm gonna be like reported on YouTube for that. But like, dude, it's just showing the freaking parallels. Like, this is so it's So obviously there's a lot of similarities between how, like, like all black people and also, I mean, how black people, women and non-human animals should be happy in their slavery and their subordination. It's your right place. Some Christian scientists strived to prove the inferiority of black people, women, and non-human animals in order to keep them in bondage or subordination. Quote, to those who called for educational opportunities for women, Brunson replies, we do not believe women, unless we acknowledge individual exceptions, are fit to have their own head. Revelation asserts, and universal experience proves, that the man is the head of the woman, and that the woman is for the man, not the man for the woman. And man's greatest error is, that he be deprived of his reason by woman. It was through the seductions of the woman, herself seduced by the serpent, that man fell and brought sin and all our woe into the world. End quote. So if she didn't, in those times, if she didn't, obey her husband or whatever and stayed at home and stuff, and if she didn't do that, and instead chose to pursue her interests outside of the home, she was seen as, quote, a social anomaly, sometimes a hideous monster, literally. I'm quoting the book, which seldom are accepting through a woman's influence. Okay, no, he said she would be a social anomaly, sometimes a hideous monster, which seldom are accepting through a woman's influence. Bronson. Okay. Quote, a woman's offering energy to the brain function was seen in the 19th century as the female counterpart to a man spilling his seed on barren ground. Drew, did you hear that? Drew, did you hear that? You have to hear that. It's hilarious. End quote. Okay. I thought it was really funny. Quote, indeed, one Dr. Edgar H. Clark, in his book Sex in Education, or A Fair Chance for the Girls, argues, presumably on the basis of precise measurements, that improper use of the brain by women causes their uteruses to atrophy. Moreover, J. Stanley Hall, the first president of the American Psychological Association, found that the more women learned, the more they risked losing their memory function. Women who were educated could not lactate and thus could not nurse their babies if they had any. End quote. I should be worried. So very funny. Okay. As if it happened. Okay, so as it happened for Black people, 19th century physiologists proved that female brains were smaller than white men's, and so women, as Black people, are naturally inferior to white men. My husband's like, see, I was right. Okay. I'm having way too much fun with this. When I was reading it, I was triggered, but now I'm just laughing. Quote, it remained for men to protect women against themselves, which they were enjoyed to do by hold on. Okay, it's gonna be hard to not laugh. It remained for men to protect women against themselves, which they were enjoined to do by both what the Bible taught and what the day's best science verified. To restrict women to the sphere for which both nature and God had prepared them, the home, was the least a responsible, loving husband or father could do. End quote. I'll put this on my fridge. Oh, can make me laugh. Okay. So this is gonna get a little bit less funny. I mean, it's funny to me because it's, yeah. Anyways, it's ugh. Okay. Quote, as recently as 1986, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a Georgia sodomy statute that criminalizes homosexual acts performed by consenting adults in the privacy of their own homes. End quote. Okay. Quote, a 1636 Plymouth colony law designates 8 capital offenses, including treason, willful murder, solemn compaction or conversing with the devil, and sodomy, rapes, buggery, and adultery. End quote. So, yeah. Death penalty was the punishment for acts of homosexuality at that point. It's straight from the Bible, actually, that they should do that. That's why they made that the punishment. Some psychiatrists contributed to homophobia by saying that homosexuals are mentally ill and in need to be cured. Lobotomy, castration, and hysterectomies, to name a few of the treatments. Quote, what is clear now is that the struggle to gain acceptance of gay men and lesbian women within the community of moral equals, like the struggle to gain acceptance of African Americans and women in general, has had to deal with some of the same powerful sources of resistance, widespread religious and scientific opinion in particular. So honestly, it's in a kind of messed up way. It comforts me, because seeing that these that are freaking obvious and that actually are widely accepted. Some of them are more than others, but in different locations. But still, like if they did it for human rights and they had the same hurdles, then it's motivating, you know, because it's not just us struggling. So it's not that we're doing something wrong or something, or that's gonna be, yeah, impossible. Uh, Quote, our culture's widespread belief in the inferiority of non human animals and their exclusion from the community of moral equals has not lacked for scientists willing to offer their support in the name of science to what religious people have accepted as a matter of revealed faith. This scientific defense has taken two forms. On the one hand, legions of scientists have offered proofs of the intellectual and rational inferiority of non human animals compared to humans. On the other hand, humans who have raised their voices in favor of human and animal equality have been subjected to ad hominem vilification. Some scientists have even gone so far as to claim that people who care deeply about the way animals are treated are mentally ill, as we've already covered in the beginning. Trying to find my quote, sorry. Well, I'll find it. Okay, most American scientists, however, have sought a justification of animal experimentation in particular and human exploitation of non-human animals in general that would position humans and other animals in two quite different moral spheres. Among the possible hold on. Okay, that makes sense. Among the possible objective grounds that have been offered in this regard are 1. That humans are unique in being able to use tools, 2. That humans are unique in being able to use language, and 3. That humans are unique in being able to pass on the knowledge accumulated by one generation to future generations. Proponents of these ideas have claimed that they are demonstrable objective facts about the world, not truths that rest on religious faith. Moreover, proponents have argued that these objective facts prove that a qualitative difference separates humans from other animals. This qualitative difference thus provides the scientific basis for admitting only humans to the community of moral equals. End quote. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's funny. I didn't know that. Like, apparently, the same insults were used for the suffragettes, the anti-slavery female campaigners, and the animal rights female campaigners, old maids. It's freaking weird, man. Um, Yeah. I put a quote, but I didn't put the page, so I don't really know. That's sad. Oh well. Quote, the power that the dominant culture into which we are born exercises over our ability to think independently is great. Our will to think on our own is small. Unquote. Yeah. The way we view animal rights is the closest thing we can get to how we might have viewed black people's rights or women's rights or homosexuals' rights in the past. It's like this thing. I remember this guy. There's this photo of a guy with a sign, and he says, if you want to know where you would have stood on slavery, look at where you stand on animal rights. So good, man. Yep. Quote, whatever moral prejudices we find, people of faith and practitioners of science will be there to assure us that the then existing moral arrangements are the right ones, just as, flesh and blood as we are, stationed here in the world today, this same assurance is offered by many people who speak these same languages. End quote. Hold on. Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I'm really excited for Bull Native. It's very soon, guys. We're almost done with the book. I mean, I love the book, but it's very long, the notes. We're almost done. Very, very few things to say about the book left. Um This is the one that's relevant to Bull Native. Quote, three important questions need to be distinguished. The first asks what violence is, the second, whether and if so, when violence can be morally justified, and the third, why people use it. Concerning the first question, many animal rights advocates maintain that violence can be directed only against sentient forms of life, human and otherwise. As long as no one is hurt, no violence is done. Given this way of understanding violence, advocates who destroy only property, say firebombing laboratories on university campuses or sinking pirate whaling ships on the high seas, Sea Shepherd, can describe themselves as being engaged in nonviolent activism. I do not think the concept of violence is limited in this way. Someone who sets fire to a vacant abortion clinic or torches an empty church causes no physical injury to any sentient being. But to suppose that these acts of arson are non-violent seems to me badly to distort what violence means. We do not need to hurt someone to use violence against something. To the extent that animal rights advocates engage in activities that damage or destroy property, they engage in violence. End quote. You'll see how freaking relevant this is to Bull Native. It's so interesting that this is at the end of the book, and after that, I'm reviewing Bull Native. Okay. Quote, nonetheless, the fact that the destruction of property counts as violence does not by itself make such destruction wrong. End quote. It brought a thought to my mind. Saying that animal advocates should focus on humans instead is like saying that anti-racism activists should focus on women's rights instead. Yeah. Okay, there's a lot of similarities between the 19th century anti-slavery movement and the animal rights movement. This just blew my mind. This is what I was talking about when I was talking about how it blew my mind, especially. So good. So welfareism and or reformist ideas versus abolitionism or animal rights. The anti-slavery movement was anything but monolithic, and they had a lot of differences. He says. Um, okay. Quote, some abolitionists called for the unconditional emancipation of slaves, insisting as well that former owners not receive compensation for their financial losses. Immediatists, as they were called, wanted to end slavery first and then go forward with various plans to educate and in other ways prepare the newly freed slaves for the responsibilities of full citizenship. Other abolitionists favored a gradualist approach. Complete emancipation was the eventual goal, but only after various alternatives to slave labor and improvements in the life of the slaves were in place. Thus, some gradualists sought freedom for slaves after, not before, those in bondage had received at least a rudimentary education or acquired a marketable skill, or after, not before, a plan of financial compensation to former slave owners or another plan calling for voluntary recolonization had been implemented. To any and all such proposals, Garrison spoke for his fellow immediatists, declaring that gradualist steps would have opponents of slavery accept the moral absurdity of tolerating the very thing they opposed as a means to ending it. For immediatists, any proposal that required the continued bondage of some slaves today as the price of emancipating others tomorrow was morally unacceptable because it violated a higher moral law. The law that we are not to do evil that so that good may come. That good may come. Yeah. Where is it? Oh man, it's a very long quote. This split between slavery's immediatists and gradualists is mirrored in today's animal rights movement. Some people who profess belief in the movement's abolitionist goals also believe that these goals can be achieved by using gradualist means. For example, by supporting protocols that aim to reduce or refine animal use in a scientific setting, with replacement possibly achieved later on, or by decreasing the number of hens raised in cages today as a step along the way to emptying cages tomorrow. In this way, it is believed, we can succeed both in making the lives of some animals better today and in ending all animal exploitation in the future. New welfareism. This is new welfareism. Other animal rights abolitionists are cut from more Garrison-like cloth. For these animal rightists, how we get to the abolition goal, not just that we get there, matters morally. Following the higher moral law that we are not to do evil that good may come, these activists believe that they should not tacitly support violating the rights of some animals today in the hope of freeing others tomorrow. For these activists, as was true of their counterparts in the anti-slavery movement, it is not a question of first finding an alternative to the evil being done before deciding whether to stop doing it. Instead, one must first decide to end the evil and then look for another way to achieve the goals one seeks. I love that phrase. For these animal rights activists, then our first obligation is to stop using animals as we do. After we have satisfied this obligation, there will be plenty of time to search for alternative ways of doing what it is we want to do. To end evil now rather than later is what conformity to the higher moral law requires. End quote. And also, we don't agree that it actually would make it happen quicker. No. Okay. Another difference between, no, another similarity between what was happening in the anti-slavery movement and the animal rights movement is The kind of divide between working with the government versus working independently. There were strong divides in the anti-slavery movement about this. I personally I haven't seen a lot of heated debate on this or like fire on this, but interesting. So there's a quote. Okay. Oh man, wrong quote too. Okay. Quote. Garrison re- Garrison read the Constitution as a pro slavery document. To see why, recall that blacks are therein counted as three-fifths persons, that although the international slave trade was to end by 1808, no mention is made of freeing any of those slaves already in America, and that many of the framers of the Constitution themselves owned slaves, Washington and Jefferson, in whose memory and honor impressive monuments stand in our nation's capital, were among the young nation's slave owners. To free the slaves, Garrison argued, it was first necessary to dissolve the Union. Douglas, who for time agreed with Garrison's position, not only reached a point where he read the Constitution differently, more important, he was prepared to act differently. Whereas Garrison insisted that the Constitution was a pro slavery document, a fact that made the American government itself morally unwarranted, Douglas added his power and influence to preserving the Union, for example, by recruiting two regiments of free blacks to fight in the Union Army during the Civil War. For Douglas, slavery would be and could be ended only by the federal government's use of military might and the power of law. The Constitution contains no ambiguous language concerning non human animals that might occasion a split among today's animal rights advocates, like that between Garrison and Douglas. Cows and pigs, chimpanzees and dolphins, ospreys and squirrels are all total non persons as far as the Constitution is concerned. Even so, what we might term the political sensibilities of Garrison and Douglas live on in today's animal rights movement. Douglas's faith in the role of government is represented by those animal rights advocates who look to the government, laws, enforcement mechanisms, and the courts as essential elements in realizing the abolitionist goal for which they labor. In contrast, Garrison's disdain for the government is mirrored by today's animal rights activists who have lost faith in the progressive role current uh, or foreseeable laws, enforcement mechanisms, or court proceedings might play in the struggle for animal liberation. For these activists, the government is not only historically rooted in and constitutionally committed to the ideology of speciesism, but also daily subject to the influence of powerful special interests that perpetuate speciesist practices as a matter of law. These activists see the government as part of the problem, not part of the solution. End quote. So another similarity between animal rights and the anti-slavery movement is violence versus nonviolence. Okay. God damn it. Found it. Okay, cool. Thanks. I think of myself, yes. Okay, today's animal rightists, quote, today's animal rightists, if not unanimously, then at least solidly, align themselves with Garrison and Douglas. Evil in the form of violence should not be done to any human being, even in pursuit of animal liberation. And anyone who would perform such an act, whatever that person might say or believe, would not be acting according to the higher moral law that should guide and inform the animal rights movement. This prohibition against violence to human and other forms of sentient life, however, does not necessarily carry over to property. This is so relevant to Bold Native. Most of slavery's opponents understood this. If the cost of freeing a slave was damaged, destroyed, or in the case of slaves themselves, stolen property, then Garrison, Douglas, and most, but not all, of their abolitionist peers were prepared to accept such violence. The same is true of many of today's animal rights advocates. Let me be perfectly honest. Some animal rightists obviously believe that violent acts against property carried out in the name of animal liberation, as well as the liberation of animals themselves, the theft of property given current law, are perfectly justified. Other animal rightists disagree, believing that a principled commitment to the higher moral law of nonviolence must be maintained even in the treatment of property. How many believe the one, how many believe the other? No one, I think, can say. What we can say and what we should say is this: it is just as false, just as misleading, and possibly just as dishonest to say that the animal rights movement is a nonviolent movement as it is to say that it is a terrorist movement. The movement to abolish slavery was neither just the one nor just the other. Of the movement to abolish animal exploitation, the same can and should be said. Those who do not say it, whatever their motivations, distort rather than describe the truth, or so I believe. End quote. Tom Regan seems to like not really think it's good that that people um commit violence against property when for activism or something. His solution is um gotta find it. Oh my god, okay. Quote, although Garrison-like abolitionists cannot support reformist measures, they can support incremental abolitionist change. Change that involves stopping the utilization of non-human animals for one purpose or another. One goal, for example, might be not fewer animals used in cosmetic or industrial testing, reduce vegetarianism, some way, but no animals used for this purpose. Other goals might be not fewer dogs sacrificed in dog labs or fewer primates studied in maternal deprivation research or fewer goats shot and killed in weapons testing, but no animals used in each of these and an indefinite number of other possible cases. A shared agenda of this type could set forth objectives that animal rights abolitionists, scientific policymakers, and biomedical researchers, for example, could agree on and work collaboratively to achieve. As such, it would go a long way toward reducing animal rights violence. It would demonstrate that it is possible to achieve incremental abolitionist goals by acting nonviolently within the system. This, in turn, would help diffuse the idea that such goals can be achieved only by acting violently outside the system. I neither say nor believe that such bold steps would eliminate all animal rights violence. What I do believe is that they would help lessen the amount of violence. I also believe that unless we find imaginative, good faith ways of trying to prevent animal rights violence instead of simply devising more and more severe ways of punishing its perpetrators, which is the way defenders of slavery attempted to deal with those who use violence in the name of slave liberation, unless we practice preventive ethics in this quarter, animal rights violence will increase in the coming months and years. Indeed, as things stand at present, The wonder of it is not that there is animal rights violence, but that there is not more of it. End quote. Okay. Just a few more quotes. It's the very end of the book there. Quoted the hell out of this book. Uh, yeah, I know my commentary was less than my reading of quotes, but I honestly don't think I'm going to have a copyright problem for this. Quote, no one can relish being the target of ad hominem attacks, of remarks that slander one's character or degrade one's professional standing. All this is bad enough. What is worse, and here I believe my experience does not differ qualitatively from that of many other philosophers who advocate other causes, is the realization that the attacks aimed at me are part of a larger national strategy involving powerful political figures and professional organizations. By way of example, consider first the following statement contained in the American Medical Association's Animal Research Action Plan. The animal activist movement must be shown to be not only anti-science but also responsible for violent and illegal acts that endanger life and property. End quote. Creepy. Second to last quote for the book. Quote, the hypocrite is the person who does this and one, feels no remorse, guilt, or shame in having done so, or two, does not believe that he or she should feel these emotions. For me, straying from there. Hold on. Never mind. Never mind. Forget that. Quoted the wrong thing. Yeah, he talks about hypocrisy for a while. Last quote. Despite the positive aura associated with its attribution, integrity itself is a problematic virtue, if a virtue at all. The worst sorts of people can be, and regrettably sometimes are, steadfast in their commitment to the family of values they uphold. For example, people who traffic in illegal drugs can exhibit integrity. They can be fully committed to being who they are and doing what they do. The same was true of devoted Nazis and other moral monsters. Because the notion of integrity is independent of the values steadfastly upheld, we do well to wonder how great a moral virtue it is. Unquote. I thought that was interesting. That makes sense. It's the quality of the values you uphold that makes integrity important. Okay, guys. Okay, so it's actually time first. Hello, Louis. Thank you for being back here. So, guys, that was that. Defending Animal Rights by Tom Regan. Really, 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 really cool guy. Rip. Because he's dead. But so guys, if you have anything you'd like to say about this book or what I said, or if you'd like to come on to the live to tell me what you thought if you read the book, um, feel free to say something in the chat. And if no one wants to, we'll go straight to Bold Native commentary. Does anyone want to tell me what they thought about the book if they read it? Can be either in the chat or on the hopping onto the live. So I'm assuming no one really has something they'd like to say. So let's hop into Bold Native. Look at this beautiful um, movie poster. I love it. All right. It's not going to be that long, my commentary, to be honest. Oh, no, actually, it's a little bit. It's like 2 pages. Cool. I have to search the movie because there are excerpts I want to show you. I've been so excited about this. Oh, so cool. So cool. Awesome. Okay, so I told the director we were doing this, by the way. He's probably busy and probably won't come, but that's okay. I just wanted him to know that we were discussing it in that, and thank him again for doing the amazing movie. So, all right. So, by the way, the movie is in the description below. It's for free online. It's an hour 44 minutes. And it was made in 2010. I really want to popularize this movie because it's really good, and it's very powerful, and it's very motivating for activists as well. So I just want to. So if you haven't watched the movie and you want to watch it later, hop off the live and watch it after. Watch this portion of the live after you've watched the movie. I will put timestamps for like when for the book section, the Bold Native section, and then the section for voting, so that you guys can know where to go. But if you have not a problem, you've got no problem with spoilers, there we go. So basically, the summary is Charlie Cranehill, an animal liberator wanted for domestic terrorism, emerges from the underground to coordinate a nationwide action as his estranged CEO father, CEO of an animal industry um, brand thing, tries to find him before the FBI does. Not everyone was vegan on set. This is just stuff I've heard, which must have been very weird actually, because like the shooting of the movie and everything must have probably influenced them. But it's like, you're the reason for this, or what the hell are you doing? Uh, the actor that plays Charlie's dad is not vegan, which is even weirder because it's like it was so powerful and so epic and incredibly rough at times, the scene, and I'll show you the scene. That's crazy. But yeah. um so basically, yeah, he was outreaching him, the dad, because the actor who plays Charlie is vegan. He was outreaching him for real, but as the character. It's crazy. A bunch of the ALF activist characters in the movie are actually played by real ALF activists, including one who actually went to prison for it. So it's very relevant that he's in the movie. The soundtrack is really amazing. So I'm actually gonna put it in the chat. Cause damn, it's so good, man. And it's hard to find. I had a hard time finding it at first. I'll put it in the chat, and I'll try to put it in the description of the live after, because I didn't do it yet. Hopefully you can click on that. I'm not sure, but I'll put it in the description later anyways. It's on YouTube. You can find it if you search it, I think. So, so some stuff I wanted to point out. So the first, like my commentary, the first scene explains how he got active. I'm gonna show you. I'm so excited to show you some stuff. Uh, Hold on, it's at. I put the timestamps for me. Spoil. Well, I'll have to show you a longer portion that I actually wanted to show you, but whatever. I'm gonna share my screen. Oops. So you guys can see that, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna make myself small. um. So I wanted to show you that because I want to comment, but it's not. It's hard. Ugh. Okay.
Can you be free yourself? Or are you caged by your own lack of compassion? My name is Charlie Cranehill. You'll read about me in the news. See pictures of me with the word terrorist after my name. They say freedom isn't free. Absolutely goddamn right. We spend our lives saying no. Not me. Not my fight. Not my problem. Not tonight. What's the difference between you and me? A few years ago, I became someone who said yes. Me. My fight. My problem. Tonight.
Okay. Let me plug it in. Ugh. Okay. So I wanted to show that because I thought it was really powerful for like vegans to get this movie worked. You liked it. Awesome. That's really nice. I'm very, very happy you watched it. Oh yeah, you told me that before. My friend Nick Tyler, who was in Bold Native, is definitely vegan because he used to join me when I spearheaded vegan street activism here in New York City. That's amazing. Yeah, and you know what? He plays one of the best freaking roles. It's not actually. I'm going to show the scene he's in. Damn, he had a really good role. Like it was really good. So yeah, that's really cool. You know him. That's awesome. So apart from that, yeah, I like how they say I like how they say Charlie thinks it's like the civil rights movement, slavery, and women's suffrage. I'm not gonna show the tiny excerpt from that, but he basically, you know, they make the in the beginning of the movie. It's actually the scene right after that. They make you think about the fact that it's very very similar movements, you know, and I love that. There was in the beginning there was footage of animals victim of lab experiment. 3 minutes into the movie, which is very powerful and awesome. It also starts with something different than the diet aspect to talk about, you know, animal exploitation, which I really liked. That's very good. Because people, you know, view veganism as a diet, and so it's good to kind of explain to them head first, you know, into it that it's not only that at all. um, oh yes. So there's this scene I want to show you as well, explaining ALF 538. Guys, I'm sorry. I forgot.
This is my team. The government would call them my cell. But cells are cages, and we are free. Our mission is simple. Liberate animals from places of abuse. Inflict economic damage on those who profit from their misery and exploitation. Reveal those atrocities to the public. Never harm anyone, human or non-human. Follow these rules, and you are a member of the Animal Liberation Front.
Yeah, that's really good and concise. Loved it. Okay. So obviously the FBI calls him. I mean, it's not obvious, but they call him a terrorist. Like they're considered to be terrorists because of what we already talked about a little bit with the Regan book. So they touch on vegetarianism. Hold on, I always forget this thing. Okay. They touch on vegetarianism and how that's still exploitation, but they focus on the suffering aspect, which makes sense and it's great because it makes people connect with the victims best. So I get it. I wouldn't say it's great actually, but I think it would have been better to no. I think it's great to show the suffering, but not focus on it as the core of like veganism or something. Would have been better to insert that this was a result, like the suffering that we're seeing is a result of seeing other animals as resources or something like that, or having like the vegan definition is really important, and they didn't really have that, the original definition. So that would be my critique as well. And by the way, keep in mind, this is my favorite movie that I'm critiquing. So uh, Nick Tyler and somewhat is and somewhat famous singer-songwriter Nellie McKay both joined me for New York City street activism back in the day. That's really cool. Um, they touched on like that, like at the same time as talking. Not really. Do they? I don't know. They they're not here for us or something like that. They touch on that at the same time as talking about the humane stuff, but I think they still focus too much on the fact that it was not actually about it being humane and so on, and the conditions. Not about that. It's about like the enslavement. It's not very clear in the movie. I think it said something, but it's not. I don't. I think it would have been better if it was even clearer than that. Um, Oh, the quote. There's a quote from there. There's multiple quotes, but like something from the movie. There's a line that says, "We're all animal rights people. It just depends on what your definition of animal is." Um, when he actually talks with the vegetarian guy who's going to help him later, he actually does a Socratic method on him, which is so interesting because it's what most activists swear by. There's oh yes, okay. Did I show that? Did I? I'm not sure. God damn. So yeah, there's an anti-new welfareism scene. Um, yeah, they explain that new welfareism, like meaning promoting animal welfare to end animal exploitation, like so that we can end, like to help abolish animal exploitation. Actually, help the industries that benefit from animal exploitation. Um. Oh yeah. Okay. I have a bunch of scenes I want to show you. I mean, I can totally show you because it's for free online, so it doesn't really matter, I think. Um, so 20. Hold on. 2407. This is a good scene. I mean, they're all good scenes. This is how it's going to.
What is alleged here by the government is that your son engaged in arson, vandalism, and theft dealing with animal enterprises. That comes squarely within the four corners of the Animal Enterprise Terrorism Act.
The Animal
Enterprise
Terrorism
Terrorism
Act. Okay.
The act targets animal activists. Ultimately, it wants to silence them and to actually put them away for a long time.
They've taken property crimes and have labeled them as terrorism as it relates to an animal enterprise.
Pharmaceutical industry, the meat industry, they're big business. They banded together and asked for this legislation, lobbied for this legislation, and they were very successful. Legislators are not coming up with terrorism laws for right-wing extremists. Anti-government, anti-abortion, and white supremacist groups who have either killed or injured people are not on the terrorism list.
These industries can get protection by convincing the government that, this is really domestic terrorism.
The penalties have increased exponentially.
Each different company could be a separate act of animal terrorism. If you have 4 or 5 different companies, your son could face life imprisonment.
Richard doesn't know where his son is. Should his son contact him, let's say hypothetically?
Your phone conversations and everything you do is probably being monitored right now.
It's important to really look towards turning himself in. He can only run so long. Eventually, they're going to find him.
Yeah. So I think it's just so good. Like it's very informative and it's well done. So there's these scenes about Feral Child. So basically, Feral Child is like a group of activists, ALF. I mean, they're not ALF activists anymore, I guess they're doing that, but they were previously ALF activists, and they decided to use violence against a perpetrator. So basically, they are basically in the movie talking about how some forms of activism hurt the movement. For example, if they're being violent, exactly this Feral Child thing. And I think it hurts the movement when your messaging is problematic. Okay, I want to show the scene 5909. Oh my god, yes, this is it. Louis, this is your friend. This is actually one of my favorite scenes. Okay, there's a naked thing at some point, so I don't want to. I don't want to watch that. Yeah, that's what it is. So, guys, this is awkward because I actually screened that movie at my potluck thing. Where can I find it? And of course, like there was this sex scene or something, which I understand they put it in because it just I guess it makes people watch even more or something. I don't know, something like that. I get it, but it's freaking awkward, man. You're screening that and great review of the book. See you later. I'll watch this after I've seen the movie, so no spoiler. Awesome, great. Yes, thank you so much. That means a lot to me because I know I was reading a lot from the book. Um, but yeah. Yeah, 10th scene, Louis. Yeah, I know. It's fucking awesome. Okay, let's do this.
Oh. Oh no. Yes, it's coming. You at the end of the table. Hey.
That's Nick.
Sorry, I'd like to propose a toast to Jane.
Yes.
Jane. As you all know, she has some good news today. Jack Sanders has agreed to all the terms she proposed. All of them.
Nick is the grumpy one.
Another fast food corporation on board.
Unbelievable, baby. I love you. Yes.
You mean gets on the Happy Meat train, right?
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry to rain
I'm sorry, I just jumping in because I think it's hard to hear. He says, who gets on the Happy Meat train, right?
on your parade. What have you really accomplished? Is that making people feel better about imprisoning and killing animals for pleasure and profit? As long as they're property, they're going to be exploited.
Dennis, shut up.
No. He's right.
No, he's not right.
He's right to be unsatisfied. I think it's a little selfish to want everything or nothing. The animals don't benefit from that. They would prefer to live in slightly better conditions, and they would prefer to be killed in slightly more humane ways. And if that is all we can get right now, I think it's worth it.
And you think anyone else will see it that way? Or do you think they'll go buy their double bacon cheeseburger with a sense of peace, knowing that these animals were treated well? Someone needs to speak out and not just get these petty, legislation upgrades. The only change that has ever been made is when someone spoke up, when someone said it is not right to have slaves.
She is speaking up. That's what she's doing.
When do you ask for what you want?
I can't panic because they need help now. They do need help now.
So do something now. Don't
I
do
am
something
doing
that will
something
improve
now.
their living conditions 5 years from now, 10
Stop.
years
This is a
from
party
now.
it's
for
okay.
her. All right, no, seriously.
There is a majority of people who feel it is their right to eat meat, their biblical right, and we have to talk to them.
I think the only moral choice is to take the choice away.
It's not possible.
Dare to dream, Jared.
Okay, yeah. I said grumpy one, but yes, he's a grumpy vegan in the scene. Exactly, Nick. Mic drop. Yeah, no, it was really good. Okay, what else? There are other scenes, and then I'll go more into like more commentary of it. But there's a bunch I want to show. Okay, 117. Oh, of course, this one.
Try that.
I'm just trying to talk to you, Charlie. That's all.
You are talking to me, Dad.
Are you this bold native, this terrorist?
Is that what they told you?
You tell me.
Okay. Bold native's not a person. It's an idea. That animals are not property. They're not ours to use. They're an end unto themselves. Their freedom is beautiful and their slavery is a horror.
You're going to hurt somebody someday, Charlie, and that's something that you can't take back.
That's not what we do, Dad.
Violence isn't going to get you anywhere.
I agree.
Then what are you doing this for?
Doing what?
Burning down buildings and destroying property, for Christ's sake.
God, you missed the whole fucking point. You're distracted by the fire. Who cares?
People care.
Who cares? You can't commit violence against property. Okay, isn't that what your whole system's based on? Animals are property, so killing them isn't violence. It's processing, or it's rendering, or confinement. Anything to keep from calling it what it really is. Beef, not cow. Pork, not pig. Get it? Poultry, not chicken. Your whole system is a lie, a disgusting, filthy lie.
Yeah. I'm not showing all of the great scenes, but there was this one that was more or less relevant. But I'm not. Yeah, it's just I'm trying to keep them relevant to activism and not just what was really satisfying. um, I was watching this when I was a teen, and it was so helpful. uh, I guess I just don't believe. I can't believe it's not more popular than it is. I just don't get it.
The nature of your participation in these bold native actions that you're promoting on your website. Aren't you advocating this kind of criminal behavior?
I believe in the born native. I believe in freedom. I believe a cage is a cage, and no one deserves to be put in one. I would love to be that out of mind. That I'm not willing to sacrifice another living being to one in order to achieve that. So you'll have to forgive me if I don't recognize someone else's rights to do it just for motherfucking hamburger.
35 actions in 35 states, all on the same night. 35 communiques, all issued through the website run by you and your girlfriend.
Sounds like a conspiracy.
Anyhow, yeah, I wanted to show you the one with so powerful, like the woman. You know what she said? Oh, there's this thing. I love it. Such a fine girl. Hold on.
Charlie loves America.
That's
Hey,
not
so do
funny.
I. Jesus, I'm hot for America. I want to push America up against the wall, and I want to fuck her senseless. And then I want to give her a bubble bath and feed her some chocolate. We go way back, me in America. That's my girl. I got melon. Swamp.
Yeah, like trying to protect non-human animals over the concept of a country. I mean, I know it's like when they say America, they mean the people in it, but I don't know. I thought it was poetic, but that's the thing after I want to show you.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. It was a little scary at first. But Tiffany, can I be honest with you?
Please, that's why we're here.
What was really scary was finding out the truth about how we treat these farm animals.
The authorities are keeping the identities of the terrorists secret right now. But can you give us a scoop on who your captors were?
You know, this is gonna sound crazy, but I think that they were heroes. And I know that they were against terror of all kinds, especially the terror that we cause animals in these factory farms.
I must say, it does sound like you may have been brainwashed.
When you witness cruelty, no matter who the victim is, you have to ask yourself, if you can see what's happening, will you turn away and do nothing?
Wait a minute.
I mean, there's a lot of things I don't agree with in terms of messaging here, and I've talked about it at length. But anyway, you know, like the focus on cruelty and there's a bunch of stuff he said. Like he said, factory farms. I was like, oh no, don't say that. Or farm instead of farm. But also it was 2010. It was I mean, I think that you can give some leeway because there's less information about the original definition and things like that. There's less talk about it. There's less people vegan, so I don't hold it against that movie too much. But yeah, I don't agree with everything, every way they how you call it, all the messaging went. There we go. Okay, one last clip I want to show, I think. And then I'll do more commentary instead of showing the parts that I thought was the ones that were worth showing. Okay, 134:57. What?
Hello.
Jane here.
Nice to meet you. Have a seat.
Thank you. So,
hopefully you have had a chance to look at the material we sent.
I read it.
Great. Okay. So our first request is that you consider matching the humane standards as practiced by the other fast food companies that we've been dealing with. The first requirement is that your suppliers provide 72 square inches per laying hen.
Would that make them happy?
Happy?
Happy. Isn't that your goal?
Did you know that a laying hen, if given a choice, will build a nest rather than eat, even though they haven't had any food in 20 hours? Did you know that? So why don't we provide building material, nesting material for them, and maybe give them access outside so they could dust bathe, give them some semblance of a real normal life in exchange for what we take away from them? What do you think about that?
That would be above and beyond what we're asking for today, but
Question for you. How do you do it? How do you come into offices like this and squabble with people like me over a few extra inches? How is it that you can sit there in your politeness, in your grace, and basically ask people for nothing? How do you do it? How do you beg for little scraps of humanity?
I think change is change.
Challenge me. Tell me what you want.
What do you mean?
Tell me.
Yeah, anyways, I wanted to show you that. If you want to see the rest, you should watch the whole movie. I'm teasing you, okay. Anyway, so my commentary, it's so funny. I stopped at a climactic moment. Okay, so yeah, there was something about like the fact that the ALF, the efficiency is like about also staying anonymous, which is the opposite of the right to rescue thing. So they just, I wanted to just mention that real quick. Okay. So I was a teen when I watched that, and this movie made me almost get active into ALF actions. I was looking at websites and stuff, but I was afraid of going to prison. So I didn't get into that, which I think is a good decision, honestly, because I think we're more efficient outside of prison, obviously. So yeah, it's great in the, you know, when you bring an educational message to your action. It hurts the industries, and it's a powerful way of liberating individual victims directly, obviously. The problem is that it's expensive, it's very risky, of course. If you want to learn more about how, like about green terrorism, stuff like the labeling and the punishing, the severe punishing of environmental and vegan activists, read the book, Green is the New Red. It's a very good book about that. So it's interesting because I have read that book, and that I just mentioned, and apparently in the 80s, if I remember correctly, before the term terrorist got attached to them by the industries and the government, the like animal rights and environmental activists were seen as heroes in the press. So that's interesting. They were kind of like taking that angle, sorry. Obviously words are powerful. This is very interesting when you read that book, because there's no strict definition of terrorism. So doors are wide open to label it like, you know, any activist you don't like as a terrorist. It's very, very loose. I don't think I need to share my screen anymore. Anyhow, let me. Oh no, not yet. Okay. Yeah, I'm actually still shocked, and I was shocked, and I still am shocked at how few vegan activists and vegans know about this movie. Probably, I'm thinking because it was in 2010. Most of us weren't vegan yet, but I mean, isn't Gary's speech from about around that too? I don't know. I don't understand. I think we should popularize the hell of it. Um, yeah, I wish they had defined veganism clearly because of the, it's great to focus on the victim suffering. When you add the vegan definition to it, it's very powerful. I really personally love the editing and the storyline and everything. The fact that it's free online is really amazing. I find it super funny, and I really align with that sense of humor in the movie. So yeah, it's my jam, I guess. But I think it's to focus on the diet aspect, which is helping perpetuate. They, like we said before, the idea that veganism is just a diet. Even if they show things about experimentation, etc., I think it would have been helpful to focus also, especially more on these other things. But I understand, it's because most of animal exploitation, or so much of it, is happening in the food industry. So I totally get it. But I think it would be helpful to have a little bit more about other forms of animal exploitation. I love that they show that vegan activists are from all walks of life in the movie, and basically just normal people, not crazy people. It's also showing that any skill or education you have can be used for your activism. So there are veterinarians. Yeah, I never know how to say that word, but anyways, there's a bunch of people. There's professors, so like philosophy professors, law, whatever. Like there's so many skills you can use for your activism. I did not like this side story about IROC, to be honest. You have to have watched the movie to understand this. I love how they explain the lives of the animal victims in small doses too, which is better for people's attention spans, and because obviously it's hard to watch and everything, but it's important to show it. It's very, I've heard, like they've done surveys or something, and most vegans have gone vegan because, gone vegan or been led to veganism because of footage, me included. So yeah. Sometimes some of the vegan characters refer to the animals as it, which is a problem, I think. One vegan character said living entities instead of sentient entities whilst referring to non-human animals, which is a problem because plants are alive, and that's not, what we're talking about. We're talking about sentience. I know I'm nitpicking, but this is really about the messaging being like perfecting the messaging. Really, I'm reviewing it, so I'm criticizing it as well. I don't remember any focus on fish exploitation and murder, which is pretty crucial as they are the most exploited in number, I think. They are often very much forgotten, and also because people relate to them the least. People believe that activists are utterly miserable people, and so I like that they made Charlie say that he's more okay than he's ever been as an activist. Relate to that, same for me. It's really hard sometimes, but honestly, yeah, because there's so much meaning in it. I'm sure a lot of people relate to that because, like there's a powerlessness of being vegan and finding all this stuff and then feeling like you can't do anything about it. And then you become an activist and you're like, well, I can do something. Even if I can do everything for them, like it's never going to be enough. At least it's something. I really don't like when at the very end they talk about the number of animals killed for food because it's only focusing on the food industry's exploitation of animals. And they also mentioned the confinement, but I would suggest in a non-vegan's mind, that's why in a non-vegan's mind that hunting is then the way to go. And they then talk about the animals in labs, but that's all, again, weirdly specific. Why not talk about animal slavery and use in general? What about horse carriages, etc.? And also, of course, like this very thing, that there's that many millions or billions or whatever of animals, that are, or non-human animals that are used and everything. Yeah, but what about fish? We have to include them, and that's trillions per year then, And I think that was important. But of course, I'm not like, this is my favorite movie, I love it. So, but still. Anyways, so let's move on to if you guys would like to come on to the live or to even just in the chat, let me know what you thought of this movie. I'm done with my commentary. And then we'll do some voting and suggesting. So guys, what have you thought of the movie? Let me know. I'll wait for like 2 minutes. Any things you'd like to say about the movie if you watched it? I guess no one really has much to say about it. That's totally fine. So let's move on. All right. So if you have any, okay. So hold on for the suggestions because I have a lot already. I just want to show you first what I have, and then if you have more suggestions. You said I tend to agree with you on the messaging of some of the parts. Yeah. Well, okay. So guys, I'm gonna show you what the books we have for the book section, because it's gonna be one section is going to be a book, and then the second section is going to be other formats, whatever, a movie, whatever it is. So for the books, please don't suggest yet. I will ask your suggestions after I show you the books I want to suggest myself, because otherwise it's gonna get lost a little bit. Okay, so I can't see what you're seeing. So yeah, okay. So I have to do this. So this is what we have. Can you guys see enough to actually decide and stuff? If you can't see, that's okay, because I have a slideshow with but it's a little less handy than this. So let me know, guys, if you can see well enough that you can choose and stuff. Otherwise, I'll have to do the other slideshow. These are just a few of the books that Louis gave to me, and some of them I already had. But these are really the books I'd like. Okay, it's too small for your phone, but that's okay, because okay, the people who prefer this, you can just go back in the video to see this one. And instead of that, I will actually show you this. So let me just put this whole screen. So this is the first page. There's 3. You can see Derek. Well, Derek, if you prefer the other version, please go back and pause it. Interesting collection. Yeah, these are the books I personally want to see to read the most, because I had to select less than the ones I have because it's too much. So these are like a bunch. So I'm gonna just let you read the ones that we have. We have The Longest Struggle, Society and Animals, The Case for Animal Rights, Animals and Why They Matter, The Lifelong Activist, The Unheeded Cry, Green is the New Red, Animal Equality, Language and Liberation, Animal Geographies. I'm not exactly sure what this is anymore, but The Dreaded Comparison. And then we have Beyond Prejudice, Animal Rights and Human Morality, Eternal Treblinka, The Animal Rights Movement in America, The Extended Circle, The Dictionary of Humane Thoughts, Free the Animals, Bringing Life to Ethics, Animal Others, Animal Rights Advocacy in the Age of Terror, The Boundless Circle, Introduction to Animal Rights, Rain Without Thunder, Animal Liberation Atheism, Animal Rights, Human Rights, Speaking for speaking for and respecting voiceless animals, Empty Cages, Animal Property and the Law. So we have 27 books from my end, from my suggestions. And then after you guys see which one you'd like the most, I'll ask you your suggestions. So yeah, if you need to see the books again, please go back and pause so that you can select what you like. Tough choice. There can be good discussions with all that. Well, thankfully, we'll do that for a long time, this book club, for years and years, hopefully. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem. But yeah, I get it. Like, I totally understand. I have like this hunger to read all of them at once. So I get it. I'm just trying to put back what so that hold on, you'll see what I'm trying to do in a second. Okay. So that the people who prefer it like this. Whoa, what the hell? Oh, I know what I did. Okay, very sorry. So that might be a little bit easier. So please remember the number of the book you'd like the most, or at least 2 of them or something. And I know it's a tough list to choose from because it's a lot of great books, but this is just for the next 2 months, because from now it's going to be 2 months live every 2 months. So you'll have plenty of time to read it. If you're going to read it, you don't have to, of course. So remember the number if you like, or the title, whatever. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Do we have does everybody has everybody done this? I mean, yeah, you can always go back and rewind and pause and whatever. So apart from the books I just shared, please give me your suggestions in the chat. 1 per person, please. And we are not voting yet, but please remember what you said so that when we're voting, we know what's going on. So if you have any suggestions for the next 2 months, a book, and also especially if you know psychology, like books for psychology and behavior change, that could be very interesting and very, very good to read as activists and outreachers. So let me know if you have any suggestions. I'm going to wait a minute and then we'll move on to voting. That's okay, Louis. Just remember what you voted so that I'm not going to forget your vote. I'm going to look at what I want to read next time. I'll just break a tie. I'll give myself that power. If there's a tie, I'll just vote or whatever. I'll vote whatever, which on the ones you prefer. Okay, so guys, there's no suggestions apparently. You didn't even read the 14th book when you had it. Well, this is how we're gonna do. This is motivating, right? Because we can do it together and stuff. So the animal rights movement in America was the one. Yeah, it seems really, really good. So many of them seem so good. Okay, so let's do this. Oh yeah, hold on. And not yet. So this vote is voting time for the first section, which is the books. So I will put back I will do this again. We'll share my screen. And we're voting for amongst these books, which one per person, please. Which one do you want it to be the next book we read for the next 2 months? Vote with the number, please, associated with that book. Sorry for the number 20 clipping, but please vote on the book you'd like us to read for next month. And you don't have to read it or get it, of course, but you can still vote. Hope you guys can see. I'm going to try to show a little bit. Feel free to pause and everything. Take your time. I'm not like taking it away forever, but I'm just checking because I can't see you voting or anything. So we have 214 for now. So which one? So there's 7 people. So we're gonna wait. If you'd like to vote, this is the time. Which book would you like us to read for next time? In the next 2 months. So if you haven't seen that, feel free to rewind and stuff. There may be only a handful left watching. Some may have gone to Zip stream. Well, I see 7 people watching on my stream thing. So there's 7 people. I mean, it's okay if you don't want to vote either. That's totally fine. Or maybe they're rewatching. Maybe they're late because they're rewinding and something. I don't know. So for now, it's 14, guys. Are we sure it's 14? Well, guys, I think it's 14. 2 people voted, but still, like, that's 2 votes. So guys, if you want to vote, I'm just gonna give one more chance. Oh no. Hold on. Have to find it. No. God damn it. There. I'll just share it real fast. Cool. Whoa, there's a bunch. Derek, that's totally fine. Totally understand. Well, guys, this is it. All right. It's 14 for the books. 14th has won. And so 14th is the animal rights movement in America. So let me hold on a second. We are reading this. I just want to show you the book. Oh, that's not what I meant. Ah, cool. It's so tiny, but this is the book. This is the book, guy. The Animal Rights Movement in America, From Compassion to Respect. This is the one we're reading the next 2 months. Cool. All right, awesome. So now it's time for the author is, I mean, you should find it, honestly, if you Google it. I can't really read it from there. By Lawrence, I can't read it. Sorry, I can't see it. It's all pixeled. You can find it if you Google it. Sorry about that. Oh, maybe I could see it like this. Hold on. Yeah, you should be able to see it like this, right? By Lawrence Finzen and Susan Finzen. Can you see it, Louis? Let me know if you can see it. Not on your bookshelf behind you. Well, I don't think it's. Oh yeah, it's right there. Actually, I thought it was up there, but it's right there. Sorry. Yep. Sorry about that. Whoops. Never mind. This is the one. This is the one, guys. We're reading it the next 2 months. I don't know if you can see, but this reminds me of a title, A Traitor to His Species, Henry Bear, and the Birth of the Animal Rights Movement. Interesting. Nice. I hope we read it someday. Cool. Okay. Ooh, I'm excited. I wanted to read it very badly, so I'm very glad that we picked that one. Okay, I'll just put it there. Eh. Awesome. All right. So now it's time to vote on. No, that's not this. This. So yeah, I don't have any suggestions for the articles, songs, art, movies. It can be anything you'd like as long as it's free to access. That would be good because buying one book is already a lot. People might have to. It's a bit much. And yeah, so anything free you'd like us to review or talk about, watch, or listen to, anything. Now is the time for suggestions. I will write them down. I told you it was going to be 4 hours. So suggestions for these things. Adding this title to my growing wish list. We'll need to go back and get the rest of the titles started as well. Yeah, awesome. Good, good. I'm gonna write my own suggestion. Oh wait, nah, never mind. I'm making a podcast on my own suggestions, so there's no point. Any suggestions? I'll wait 1 more minute. Ooh, okay, all right. I'll write it down. Okay, so Louis' friend. Can you? What's the name? Called Guitos. Okay, I'll write Guitos. It's in English? Louis, is it in English? Yeah, awesome. Great. Thank you. Bull Native was so cool. Documentaries are cool too, but wonder if there's more films like Bull Native. Yeah, I wanted to. That would be really cool. Yeah, no, it's such a beautiful movie. I'm glad you like it. Any other suggestions for the other types of materials? Material? Because otherwise we'll watch Guitos if no one has any other idea. And everybody wants to do this. I mean, if you only have one suggestion, you're doing that one. Yeah, it seems interesting. An animated YouTube series supporting the vegan content. I mean, animal rights related, you said? So guys, I guess we're doing this. Let me put it on the screen. Hold on. Okay, so this is the non-book content we're doing for in 2 months, okay? A YouTube series called Guitos. We're watching Guitos. Awesome. All right. Cool. Well, guys, we've done it. 4 hours in. I predicted it. My husband was there the whole time. It was nice that he listened to. Okay. Oh, nice. That's really always a great thing. Renzo, the creator of the Guitos series, is open to criticism too. Well, if it's your new friend, maybe you could let him know when we have the live that we're watching his stuff. That would be nice, maybe coming from you. I tend to try to tell the people we're reviewing when they're not dead and not super famous or something that we're doing it, so that they can, if they want to watch it, It's always nice, I think. So yeah, if you're open to contacting him, otherwise I will. If you don't, but I think it would be better if you did because you're the friend. Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm very freaking excited. I love this book club so much, guys. I have to tell you, like, this is so much fun for me, and it's great. Thank you so much, Louis. Awesome. So this is all thanks to Louis, guys, that we have all these books available to choose from. Louis is a legend. Thank you so much, Louis. So this is the one we're watching next month. It's kind of big, so I'm very happy we have 2 months to read them now, because damn, would have been kind of rough. Because yeah, but great. All right. So yeah, after that, I wanted to let you know we're not done at all. I wanted, yeah. So if possible, please make sure this book is secondhand or an ebook, audiobook. Get it from a public library or borrow it to make it as sustainable as it can be, the book club. But also, of course, it's always great to support the author. So whatever you'd like to do, it's still fine, of course, but try to make it as sustainable as possible. Louis, you rock. Yep. Whoops. Is this Guito's Kids on YouTube? Yep, it's on YouTube. Guito's series on YouTube. So yeah, there's a bunch of websites here on the screen if you'd like to check them out. If it can help you, feel free to pause. But of course, you might know a bunch of them anyways, but just to try to help. Consider giving, this is great actually, consider giving the book that we review every 2 months, consider giving it away to a public library to help spread the message when it's a good enough book, of course. We're not necessarily going to review things we agree with, but I have yet to donate the one from last month, but I will. Especially if they are in good condition, because I don't think libraries are okay with books in bad condition. Yeah. That's all from my little slideshow. I will create a live soon for like in 2 months so that everybody knows what we're reading and everything. Apart from that, please let me know in the comments if you're rewatching it, or if you'll hear live what you think. That would be really nice to hear your thoughts in the comments. Also, it helps me in the algorithm, so it's always good. Yeah, so remember, it's every 2 months. Please, if you would like to have see some exclusive content, like I post conversations on Patreon that I don't publish publicly, because I don't want non-vegans necessarily to see them, because they're not necessarily good performances, but I think it can be helpful for vegans to watch those, to kind of learn from what not to do. And I post like live Q&As, stuff like this. I do stuff like that, a bunch of stuff there. And also, if you'd like to support my activism, because that's my only job, and that would really help. And yeah, I'm going to be doing 2 lives per month for reacting to outreach, because now we're doing less of the book club lives, and it's always very helpful for me, honestly, and I think for other people, to talk about the way we do outreach. And also, of course, continuing to do 2 outreach videos per month, and a lot of shorts, focusing on shorts a lot. Oh, he has 2 channels, Gatos and Gatos Kids. Interesting. Okay. I guess Gatos is the one we're watching. Not sure. Please watch Bold Native if you haven't already. It's for free online. It's in the description below. Thank you so much to the creators, like the filmmakers and the actors of Bold Native. You did a fantastic job. My favorite movie ever. You're amazing. And thank you, of course, Tom Regan, for having been amazing. And RIP. But I feel like I'm forgetting something. Maybe not. Anyhow, thank you for coming. Please become a Patreon member. It's the highest is like it's $1, $3, and $5, I think. So it's really, yeah, it would be really cool if you'd be interested in that. Yeah, RIP, Tom Regan. Anyhow, please, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Obviously, go vegan if you're not already. Get active for the animals. Educate yourself about veganism and how to be a better activist. And thank you so much for everything you do for the animals. Like, subscribe, comment, become a baker. Where did you get it? Share, whatever. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here and watching. See you guys. See you in another live or premiere.